My girlfriend is my sister's best friend. Chapter 1. The freshman military training had just ended yesterday. Right now, all he wanted was to curl up in bed and recharge his energy. As for his overly energetic roommates, they had either gone home or were spending time with their girlfriends, leaving him alone in the dormitory. Without hesitation, he opened the Qidian app and clicked on the top of his bookshelf to continue reading the romance novel he had been following when Adolescent Fantasies Come True. Although it was a romance novel from the male perspective, the author was actually a woman. Rumor had it that she was a PhD student who only wrote books as a personal hobby. Sometimes, she would even sing in the bonus chapters to reward readers like him who supported her work legitimately. Ring. Ring. A sudden, urgent ringtone blared. He had just reached the climax of the bonus chapter when it was abruptly interrupted. If it had been anyone else calling, he would have hung up and blocked them without a second thought. But after glancing at the name on the screen, Juchu instantly sprang up from his bed, grinning as he tapped the answer button. "Hey, sis, what made you think of calling me?" Yes, the caller was none other than his elder sister, Juqin, a beautiful girl, who was 8 years older than him and had trained in Sonder, a form of Chinese kickboxing, since childhood. His memories of growing up were filled with being oppressed by her. He had finally escaped to a university in a neighboring city, yet she still wouldn't leave him alone. "I missed you, my dear little brother," she said in a warm, intellectual tone with a hint of playful affection. "How could you not tell me you weren't coming home for National Day? Do you know how heartbroken that makes your big sister, who has always loved you so much?" A less experienced guy might have fallen for her words, but Juchu knew his sister too well. He wasn't going to fall into her trap. "I just didn't want to disturb you, that's all." "Don't give me that nonsense," Juqin cut him off without mercy. "If I weren't swamped with work, I'd have gone straight to the inching and given you a good beating." "Alright, sis, I was wrong. Here's the deal. I've got a task for you. If you do it well, I might consider letting you off the hook and even give you a nice back-to-school present." As much as Juchu wanted to tell his sister to buzz off, he sighed and replied, "Alright, tell me what it is, and I'll try my best to do it." "Not just to try, but you have to give it your all. This is a rare opportunity, after all. If you handle it well, who knows?" Juqin's words trailed off, her voice shifting into a mischievous chuckle. It sounded like she'd thought of something funny because she kept laughing for almost half a minute before clearing her throat and continuing, "Back when I was in college, I had a close friend named Jiang Jinmai. She's now a PhD student at your university. I want you to look after her. If she's your classmate." Juchu tried to connect the dots. "Then she's as old as you, right?" "What? Are you calling me old now?" Sensing the change in tone from the other end of the call, Juchu quickly backpedaled. No, not at all. I just thought your friend would be a mature woman who wouldn't need my help, that's all." "You're right. I did ask her to look after you. I've already sent you her contact info. Seize the opportunity, little bro." Before Juchu could refuse, the phone call ended with a series of beeping tones. She had hung up. So now, in addition to having one overbearing sister, he had another one imposed on him during his college life. And she wasn't just any sister, she was a supervisor sent in the name of looking after him. Could he opt out of this arrangement? He could already foresee his tragic college life ahead. He had planned to stay in his dorm, minding his own business, but it seemed fate had other ideas. Looking at the messages Juqin had sent via WeChat, QQ, and even SMS, Juchu hesitated for a long moment before searching for the contact. The username was "Doesn't He Like Ginger," and the profile picture featured Yuko Ikehara from XXXholic. Her social media posts were all locked, leaving him with no chance to check her photos. His plan to assess her appearance first was a total failure. Juqin had claimed Jiang Jinmai was good-looking, but who would believe a friend's hype about their bestie? If those kinds of compliments were trustworthy, then even pigs could compete in beauty pageants. Besides, even if she was a beauty, what did that have to do with him? He was 18, and she was already 26. They were worlds apart. Friend request sent, Juqin's brother, Juchu. Surprisingly, the request was accepted in less than a minute. "Doesn't he like ginger? Hello. Ju Matman, hello. Doesn't he like ginger? Your sister told me about you. She said you're a cute little boy." Juchu fought the urge to curse. He was already an adult, but Zhu Qin still described him as a cute little boy. He decided to check Jiang Jinmai's posts again. His main goal? To find her photos. But there were none. Their essay saying, not all girls who post selfies are beauties, but girls who never post selfies definitely aren't. Zhu Matman, oh. I'm going to sleep if there's nothing else. Doesn't he like ginger? The weather really is great for sleeping. But? Doesn't he like ginger? It's about to rain, and I didn't bring an umbrella. Can you come pick up your sister? Pleading emoji. Zhu Madman, I doubt it'll rain anytime soon. Zhu Madman, good luck. I believe in you. Doesn't he like ginger? Your sister told me you just enrolled in the English department. I'm helping the professor as a teaching assistant and I handle attendance points. Zhu Madman, where are you now, sister? I'll head to the school gate to pick you up right away. Doesn't he like ginger? I'm coming from Lianqing station by taxi. Let me ask the driver how much longer. Doesn't he like ginger? He says about 15 minutes. If you ride a bike, you should get to the school gate just in time. Zhu Madman, on it. Zhu Chu quickly got out of bed, threw on a t-shirt, and opened the balcony door. The wind had calmed a little, but the clouds had grown darker, as if waiting for the signal to release a downpour. There was only one umbrella in the dorm, and if it didn't rain too hard, it should be enough for 2 people. Since most students were away for the holidays, the campus was practically deserted. He easily rented a shared bike and pedaled toward the school gate. By the time he arrived, his hair had been completely messed up by the wind. Luckily, he still had about 3 or 4 minutes to spare. Zhu Madman, I'm here. Where are you? Doesn't he like ginger, so fast? I'm still stuck at a red light. 5 more minutes. Zhu Madman, I'm at the gate, wearing a black t-shirt. Doesn't he like ginger? I'm wearing a white blouse with a light blue knit vest. Oh, and I have a big suitcase. Zhu Madman, so the suitcase is the real reason you called me for help, huh? See through you emoji. 3 minutes later. A teal-green Lianqing taxi pulled up at the school gate. The girl who stepped out. She was breathtakingly beautiful. Chapter 2, The Friend's younger brother is actually my book fan. Zhu Qin wasn't lying to him. Her best friend, Jiang Jinmai, was indeed very attractive. She was at least 1.72 meters tall, as she had said, wearing a white t-shirt paired with a blue knit sweater, casual pants, and sneakers. However, in stark contrast to Zhu Qin's domineering aura, Jiang Jinmai gave off a much gentler, more intellectual vibe. She wasn't wearing glasses, and her long hair cascaded past her shoulders. Her complexion was fair, and her eyes, shaped like peach blossoms, were captivating, far from the typical image of a female PhD student. Most striking of all, she had an incredible magnetic presence. By the school gate, a number of boys couldn't tear their eyes away from her. Zhu Chu. That's me. You're Jiang Jinmai? Your sister wasn't lying to me. You're really handsome, Jiang Jinmai said, pushing the suitcase she was carrying towards Zhu Chu. The taxi driver had been kind enough to unload it for her, and Zhu Chu hadn't even had a chance to help. Thanks for the compliment. As Zhu Chu took the suitcase, her backpack also fell onto his shoulder. At this moment, Zhu Chu felt like nothing more than an emotionless moving machine. But the next second, he felt a hand on his head. It was an incredibly soft and smooth hand, which rubbed over his head several times. Luckily, he had washed his hair last night. Zhu Chu lowered his head and locked eyes with Jiang Jinmai. Her gaze seemed to have hooks in it. Countless peach blossoms seemed to have invaded his mind, causing him to lose focus for a few seconds. When he snapped back to reality, her hand had already retreated. This woman was truly powerful. The pressure she gave off was no less than his sister's. Why was his life so miserable? Just when he thought he had escaped his sister's clutches, he was about to be tormented by her friend. He just wanted to be an ordinary college student. Why was it so hard? But for some reason, her voice felt oddly familiar, as though he had heard it somewhere before. So you just finished military training? The two walked towards the campus, with Jiang Jinmai walking very close to his left side. Of course, she had to stay close to this handsome young man. Especially since he was so much younger and ridiculously handsome. She had imagined what Zhu Qin's younger brother might look like after hearing her talk about him so much, but when she saw him in person, she was still stunned. She had thought he'd just be a male version of Zhu Qin, but he turned out to be even more handsome. He was at least 1.83 meters tall, and his previously handsome face now had a more resolute expression due to the military training. She had almost gasped out loud when she first saw him, but then remembered she had to maintain her composure as an elder. She hadn't had any crushes when she was a teenager, but now, as an older woman, she found herself a little smitten. Yep, Zhu Chu nodded. Did you apply sunscreen? You haven't gotten any darker. No, I didn't use any. No problem, I've got some. I'll give it to you later. Thank you, but I really don't need it. Right, of course. Your skin is just naturally perfect. Jiang Jinmai sighed, then lightly poked his cheek. So soft. Is this what an 18-year-old boy's face feels like? Zhu Chu didn't even hear what she said after that. The moment she poked his cheek, his brain shut down completely. So this is the allure of an older woman. No wonder in movies, older women are always so irresistible. Who can resist this? The most crucial thing was that she didn't seem to be uncomfortable with this physical contact at all. It was like she already considered him her little brother. She was his sister's friend, and this was their first time meeting, yet it escalated to this point so quickly. So the next part of the story should go like this: a sudden downpour, and they seek shelter in an empty room, where they have to take off their clothes to dry them. Zhu Chu felt his face burning, but it wasn't because of the imaginary scenario. What are you thinking about? You didn't even listen to what I said. Jiang Jinmai's sudden voice pulled him back to reality, and her pale hand waved in front of his face, nearly making him stumble. It's nothing, nothing, Zhu Chu shook his head, finally shaking off those inappropriate thoughts. She was his sister's friend. And she was 8 years older than him. How could he have bad thoughts about her? It was just because she was so enthusiastic, nothing to do with him. Good, good. Just as she finished speaking, a thunderous sound suddenly boomed from the distant sky. Zhu Chu pulled out the umbrella he had prepared. It wasn't very big, but it was big enough to cover both of them. Sure enough, less than half a minute later, the long-anticipated heavy rain finally came. The wind carried large raindrops, and the umbrella didn't do much to stop it. Within a few minutes, Zhu Chu's clothes were completely soaked. Jiang Jinmai was a bit better off, thanks to her knit sweater, but it still wasn't ideal. We should find a place to take shelter from the rain, she suggested. Okay. Zhu Chu was pulled into the nearest classroom building. They stood under the eaves of the building. How is this? Jiang Jinmai took off her sweater and wrung it out, and a large puddle of water formed on the ground. Unlike how it's usually described in novels, her white shirt was only slightly wet and didn't show anything. Let us wait a bit before leaving. Jiang Jinmai looked up at the dark sky, sighed, and sat on the suitcase. Do you have anything urgent to do? Were you planning something this afternoon? No, Zhu Chu shook his head and pulled out his phone. I was planning to read a novel. You read novels? I love them too. Maybe I'm reading the same one you are. Even though she was sitting on the suitcase, Jiang Jinmai still managed to cross her legs in a casual manner. It had to be said, her legs were really long. If she were wearing a skirt, it would be perfect. Zhu Chu hesitated for a moment. The novel he was reading, The Menopause Dream Will Come True, had a slightly juvenile name, and it was a romance novel. It felt a bit odd for a guy to read romance, right? But this novel was really good, and he had a hard time not recommending it. Plus, Jiang Jinmai was a girl, so she might enjoy it too, right? Zhu Chu gritted his teeth. The menopause dream will come true. Let the social embarrassment begin. But Jiang Jinmai's reaction was completely unexpected. Her face, which was originally pale, turned a deep shade of red, almost as if it could drip with water. Her pupils contracted, and the emotions in her captivating eyes shifted rapidly until they were filled with disbelief. The author of that book is their pen name Qin Zhu. Yes, Zhu Chu nodded, still not understanding why Jiang Jinmai was so excited. Even if they were reading the same book, her reaction seemed a bit extreme. I'm also reading that book. Jiang Jinmai jumped off the suitcase, and the suitcase was knocked several meters away, but she didn't care. She couldn't help but be excited. Because she was the author, Qin Zhu, of The Menopause Dream Will Come True. Chapter 3, A Fox Spirit from Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. Jiang Jinmai knew she had male fans. But she never imagined that her best friend's younger brother would be one of them. This was also her first time meeting a fan in person. Although she had imagined countless scenarios of meeting her fans offline, being trapped by rain like this was something she never expected. How far have you gotten? Jiang Jinmai leaned close to Ju Chu, her eyes fixed on him. I finished the latest chapters. Ju Chu, affected by her enthusiasm, couldn't help but complain, but the updates from Qinzhou are so slow. It's just a tiny bit every day, totally not enough. Well, that's mainly because the author is busy with her studies. Jiang Jinmai instinctively wanted to defend herself, but just as she spoke, she realized something was wrong. Right now, her role was as Ju Chu's sister's friend, not as the author of the novel he was reading. She almost slipped up and quickly wiped the sweat off her forehead. Thank goodness. Is it true that she is a doctoral student? Ju Chu asked curiously. I guess it's true. Didn't Qinzhou mention in the fan group that she is still a student? And, someone who writes sweet romance like that must be a single dog of a certain age. Jiang Jinmai kept her surface calm, but inside, her heart was bleeding. Did she just call herself a single dog? But, in order to keep up the pretense, she had to tell the truth and quickly change the topic. By the way, have you read her previous works? I heard they are pretty good. I finished The Genius Student's American Girlfriend, and I Am the Queen of Dogs. They are actually really good. Ju Chu gave a thumbs up. Especially The American Girlfriend, I've read it 3 times. Why can't I have a girlfriend like Xiang Li? Har har, don't worry, you'll have one. Jiang Jinmai tried to smooth things over. You're still in your first year, young, and your wonderful college life hasn't even begun yet. No, I think it's already over, Ju Chu said. Why? Ju Chu didn't answer, only looking at Jiang Jinmai. She could easily tell what he meant. But she definitely wanted to keep getting closer to Ju Chu. A handsome male fan had to be cherished. Male readers and female readers enjoy different things. Sometimes, it was hard for her to gauge, but now, with Ju Chu around, she could always ask him. Today was truly a great day for her. I'm just here to look after you as your sister asked me to. I can't interfere with everything. You can just go ahead and experience youth freely. Jiang Jinmai sighed when she mentioned youth, her expression suddenly becoming wistful. Youth. It's such a beautiful thing. Does that mean you don't have youth, my Jie? Ju Chu asked curiously. After all, Jiang Jinmai, as an exceptionally beautiful doctoral student, surely had a perfectly complete youth, right? If that wasn't perfect, then what could be? Of course I do, Jiang Jinmai said, tapping him on the head. It's just that my youth wasn't as dazzling. Jiang Jinmai walked over to the wall and sat back on the suitcase that had been knocked away earlier. She swung her long legs, taking a few steps before they slid back to the ground. Ju Chu took a moment to survey the building they were sheltering in. It was an old building with glass doors, the lobby not too spacious, and the wall behind them had a line of gilded characters, School of Economics and Management. They had just taken shelter in the closest building, but it turned out they had accidentally entered the School of Economics and Management. Since it was pouring rain and many people had left for the National Day holiday, the building was nearly empty. To the left were photos of outstanding teachers and graduates, and to the right, various honors the school had received over the years. They were in the old campus, so the building looked rather aged, with designs from 20 years ago. Ju Chu's gaze swept around, but in the end, it returned to Jiang Jinmai. She was typing on her phone, chatting with someone. From this angle, Jiang Jinmai looked even more beautiful. As if sensing Ju Chu's gaze, Jiang Jinmai lifted her head and looked over. He hurriedly looked away. But this made Jiang Jinmai laugh, rolling the suitcase toward him and stopping right in front of him. Be a little bolder. She teased, placing a hand on his shoulder. I'm telling you, most girls like outgoing and bold guys. You should learn to be one. Do you know who I was chatting with just now? She asked, her tone playful. No idea, Ju Chu replied. Of course, I was chatting with your sister. She asked me what I thought of you. Jiang Jinmai grinned mischievously. What did you say? Ju Chu was still curious about this. Well, of course, I said you're great. In Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, they all like young men, Jiang Jinmai chuckled. Oh, Ju Chu gasped. Jiang Jinmai's metaphor. He felt like he had become the Tang monk being watched by a female demon, with that kind of predatory gaze making his heart race. He had already thought that Zhu Qin was tough to deal with, but Jiang Jinmai was clearly on another level. Zhu Chu felt a chill running down his back, as if his blood was being drained. Indeed, the more beautiful a woman is, the harder she is to deal with. Even though his opinion of her had improved because she was also a fan of Qin Zhu's, he still decided to try to avoid seeing her too often. "Oh, I'm just kidding," Jiang Jinmai squinted, giving him a teasing smile. "No way, right? You didn't really fall for an older woman, did you?" As she spoke, she couldn't help but pinch Zhu Chu's cheek. Though he looked thin, his face still had a bit of baby fat, and it felt nice to touch. She couldn't help it, he was just so cute. No wonder Zhu Qin was so reluctant when introducing her to her brother, even warning her not to develop any bad thoughts about him. Zhu Chu could clearly feel the coolness of her fingers on his face, soft and smooth. It felt like a delicate touch from a snowy winter. Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Female Demons. It was hard to control his heart, which seemed to be racing wildly in his chest. He had to grab her wrist and press her hand down to stop himself. But to Jiang Jinmai, this seemed like a little boy's attempt at being reserved. "By the way, what do you think of Qin Zhu's books?" "Let us see if our opinions match," Jiang Jinmai asked, feeling Zhu Chu release her wrist. For some reason, she felt a strange sense of loss. Chapter 4, Was I just wall-pressed? Qin Zhu's books are very delicate. Whether it's emotional build-up or detailed description, it's top-notch, Zhu Chu said after thinking for a moment. "Anything different? These comments are all cliches in the book reviews, you know." Jiang Jinmai wasn't very satisfied with his vague response. But this was the essence of Qin Zhu's writing style. Zhu Chu couldn't just throw out some irrelevant comment. As a fan of Qin Zhu for 3 years, Zhu Chu had witnessed her growth firsthand. Her writing skills had clearly become more refined. But if he were to pinpoint her biggest trait, let me just share my thoughts on the new characters. Go ahead. Jiang Jinmai's eyes lit up, her excitement standing in stark contrast to the rain pouring outside. Zhu Chu suddenly felt that the downpour didn't seem so bad after all. If it weren't for this rain, maybe by now he would have already dropped Jiang Jinmai off at her dorm, and there would have been no opportunity to hide from the rain and chat like this. Right now, he had to thank Qin Zhu. Without her books, it would have been hard to find something to talk about with her. Zhu Chu cleared his throat and began, "Let us start with the female protagonist, Qiu Zhenyue." "Hold on a sec," Jiang Jinmai interrupted, putting her hair up with a hair tie, then pulling out her phone to open the Notes app. After a moment, she nodded. "Okay, go ahead." "There's no need to be so serious," Zhu Chu said, rubbing his forehead. "How much do you really like her books?" Jiang Jinmai realized she was acting a bit too eager. Oh no. She had let her identity as the author slip out. She always recorded useful book reviews, and this in-person critique felt almost like a ritual. After all, readers' feedback was often sharp and objective, and using it to revise the text was often very effective. "Please understand your sister's feelings," Jiang Jinmai tried to suppress her excitement, maintaining a calm demeanor, though her smile betrayed her emotions. "I'm 26 and still single. What's wrong with fantasizing about romance novels? But you, a guy, reading this stuff." She paused, then added, TSK, that's a bit odd." Zhu Chu's face turned red again. He knew it was risky to admit he read romance novels, especially to someone outside his close circle. It would be such an embarrassing disaster. "I'm just joking. Boys who read romance novels are sweet and cute, okay?" Jiang Jinmai quickly tried to smooth things over. "You go ahead, I'm ready to take notes. Should I talk about the female protagonist now?" "Go ahead." In her mind, Qiu Zhenyue was one of the best characters she had created, and she was curious to hear how a male fan would view her. "I think the female protagonist is a bit too weak." "Of course, I know Qin Zhu designed her character that way." "That makes sense," Jiang Jinmai nodded. She had heard a lot of readers mention this, but she had no intention of changing it. Seeing her nod, Zhu Chu felt a bit more confident. After all, she wasn't the author, she was just another regular reader like him. Even if he criticized the character, she wouldn't be angry enough to tear him apart. For the female protagonist, I think she should be a bit stronger. It's obvious Qin Zhu wanted to give her a bad girl buff along with her gentle traits, but I think it fell a little short, Ju Chu said. A strong female lead Jiang Jinmai tilted her head thoughtfully, turning off her phone screen. She stood up and walked toward Ju Chu. Her face came closer and closer. Ju Chu's heart immediately sounded an SOS signal. 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter, so close. His heartbeat quickened, but at the same time, a strange clarity hit him. This must be the charm of a dominant, strong woman. He instinctively took a step back, but after just a few steps, he was already cornered by the wall. Jiang Jinmai was looking at him with a half smile, her eyes narrowed into crescent moons, yet her gaze carried an undeniable force. Up close, her skin looked flawless, fair and smooth, and despite the rain, she didn't appear any less beautiful. She wasn't wearing makeup, and her natural beauty surpassed even Ju Qin's. Logically, they were 8 years apart, but when he started school, there were still rumors about his sister. Rumors of her beauty and strength, of how 2 class leaders once fought over her, and in the end, she made them both back down. As a result, no one dared to mess with him in school. Sis, I was just joking, Ju Chu tried to sidestep, but before he could escape, Jiang Jinmai suddenly reached out and pressed her arm against the wall. She was so close to his ear now. Was this a wall press? Her body was almost touching his, just a hair's breadth away. Although this wasn't the first time Jiang Jinmai had made his heart race, this time, he found himself deeply moved again. For an older woman to tease a pure-hearted boy like him, wasn't that a bit unfair? And the scent of her something subtle, fresh, and enticing was locking into his senses. Was it something all girls naturally had? It was hard not to feel a bit dazed. Ju Chu gritted his teeth and somehow managed to keep his composure. Is this the kind of strong character you want? Jiang Jinmai said, suddenly laughing as she withdrew her arm and gently pinched his cheek. How does it feel? Is this the female protagonist you had in mind? Is this really the type of female protagonist I want? That shouldn't be the question. The real question is, who wouldn't like a woman like this? There couldn't be anyone who didn't, right? Ju Chu still felt his face heat up, even though she had already sat back on the suitcase. Her scent still lingered around him. Not bad, Ju Chu exhaled deeply, trying to focus his gaze back on Jiang Jinmai. But I warn you, if you keep this up, I might lose control. And then, you'll be in trouble. I actually kind of like danger. Jiang Jinmai tilted her head and gave him a playful smile, opening her notes app again. No danger, no challenge. Ju Chu shook his head, finally clearing those flustering thoughts from his mind. As for the male lead, Yu Sheller, I think his character is pretty well developed. It's quite easy to relate to. Oh? Don't tell me you relate to him just because he is handsome? Jiang Jinmai teased. Ju Chu could only sneer in response. But honestly, he did feel a strong connection. After all, in the book, Yu Sheller had a cousin, and Ju Chu had a sister. Every guy with a sister shares the same struggles. I think I know who your favorite character is in the book, Jiang Jinmai suddenly said, giving him a knowing look. Who? Of course, it's the male lead's cousin Li Luoqing. Why? Because it's so obvious. You're a sister-complex guy. Chapter 5, The Wise Do Not Fall in Love. The heavy rain had just stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, sweeping away the gloomy atmosphere of the day. Unfortunately, by the time the sun came out, it was already close to the late afternoon, and the golden hue of sunset was starting to color the sky. The roads were uneven, filled with puddles where rainwater had collected, and leaves, swept away by the storm, drifted in the water. Although it was an older part of campus, the rain had washed everything clean, leaving a vibrant, fresh air. Jiang Jinmai took a deep breath, her expression relaxed and comfortable. Looking at her, Ju Chu couldn't help but smile. She looked like an otter stretching lazily, and her side profile was so striking, perfectly matching the scene of a summer rain clearing. Oh, by the way, I forgot to ask you. Why did you choose to take the college entrance exam at Lianda? Jiang Jinmai suddenly asked, turning her head, only to find him staring at her with a silly, infatuated look on his face. As expected, she hadn't aged at all. She still had quite an attraction to young men. She secretly nodded to herself. When she was pursuing her undergraduate and graduate degrees, she hadn't really focused on romance for the sake of her studies. Now that she was a doctoral student, perhaps she could afford to relax a little. Wait a minute. She suddenly snapped out of her thoughts. How could she be thinking like this? As a mature woman, she should have a heart as calm as still water by now, especially since she still had the weighty task of updating her new book. It was all the fault of the sweet, ambiguous atmosphere after the rain, and the handsome younger brother of her best friend. Wise people don't fall in love. The reason she was being kind to him was simply because he was her best friend's brother, and also because he was convenient for gathering materials for her new book. That's it. How could she possibly be interested in a boy so much younger than herself? But when he was shy, he was truly irresistible. Lianda is also a prestigious school. You're here for your doctoral studies, so you must be pretty impressive, Ju-Chu said, trying to avoid the topic. I didn't come here because of the school. Jiang Jinmai suddenly stood in front of Ju-Chu, blocking his path. Before Ju-Chu could ask what she was doing, she had already grabbed his suitcase, turned her back, and sat on it. Push me, she said without looking back. Ju-Chu was taken aback. He had seen similar scenes in couple videos before. But those typically featured petite female protagonists sitting on luggage, their legs dangling. Jiang Jinmai's long legs seemed to be over a meter long, and even while sitting, her feet were nearly touching the ground. Unless she sat with her legs crossed, showing off. Also, she had a bag on her back and was sitting on the suitcase, making it look like she was doing the heavy lifting. Come on. Jiang Jinmai swung her legs, tapping her heels against the suitcase to hurry him. It was a pity her long, perfectly shaped legs weren't in a skirt today. Since the rain had just cleared, the campus was getting busier, and many male students couldn't help but stare. Ju-Chu actually enjoyed this kind of envious attention, especially after seeing some boys court sneaking glances at beautiful girls and getting pinched by their girlfriends. The only person oblivious to the change around them was Jiang Jinmai, who even turned her head to urge him on. Ju-Chu could no longer slack off, sighed, and grabbed the handle of the suitcase to push it forward. It became a lot more difficult. Not only was it difficult to push the suitcase since it was designed to be pulled, not pushed, but now, with the added weight of a person, it was even harder. There was, of course, a way to make it easier, kicking the suitcase forward with his foot. But he couldn't do that. Is it a bit tough? Jiang Jinmai suddenly leaned back, looking at him from an upside-down angle. She really was beautiful. This angle made her features stand out even more, and the reflection of the blue sky was visible in her eyes. It was absolutely mesmerizing. I'm fine, Ju-Chu chuckled softly, realizing how lucky he was to be in this situation. Most people would be begging to push a beautiful girl's luggage, and here he was, trying to kick it. Though, if he were honest, he still wanted to use his foot. Earlier, you asked me why I came to Lianda, right? Jiang Jinmai returned to her original position and straightened up. The reason is, my uncle is the president of Lianda. Honestly, if I wanted to, I could go to Tsinghua or Peking University. What? Ju-Chu was shocked by her words. Her uncle was the president of Lianda? What kind of family background was that? The most unbelievable part was that she was speaking so calmly, without a trace of humor in her tone. Really? Your uncle is the president of Lianda? Ju-Chu cautiously asked. Har har har, Jiang Jinmai laughed out loud. After a while, she replied, if I were a freshman and heard that, I'd probably be flattered, but unfortunately, I'm already a doctoral student. Ju-Chu was infected by her laughter and couldn't help but laugh too. If your uncle is the president of Lianda, doesn't that mean? My family has always been in education, but they all work in the Ministry of Education. Hearing this, Ju-Chu couldn't help but gulp. He admired Ju-Chin even more now. How did he end up befriending a girl from such a prestigious family? It wasn't just a family of scholars, it was practically a cultural dynasty. At first, he thought she was just an ordinary doctoral student, but now. Please, take me under your wing. Ju-Chu almost slid to his knees in front of her. If he could be associated with the niece of the university president, wouldn't that mean? He could sleep anywhere on campus. Who would dare to give him bad grades? They'd be asking for trouble. My family doesn't allow me to use connections for personal gain, Jiang Jinmai said firmly, snapping him out of his fantasies. So I can't help you, unless you want to write a thesis. I can help you with that. You're so kind, sis. Ju-Chu sighed dramatically. Although he had just started college, he understood how important writing papers was. And if she were the one guiding him, the quality of the paper would shoot through the roof. Just remember not to talk about my family background to others, Jiang Jinmai interrupted, her tone serious. My uncle is quite traditional and doesn't he like me using his name for personal gain? No problem, Ju Chu promised, then suddenly thought of something. By the way, does Ju Qi know who you really are? Of course she knows. That is why she asked me to look after you. Jiang Jinmai's face twisted in irritation as she scoffed. What a scheming woman. Always using me. Ju Chu, who had been pushing the suitcase, didn't he dare to speak. He had been at the university for a while now, and he knew where the doctoral dormitory was. But at the next intersection. Turn right, I live in the Qingjiao dormitory. What? You're not. You'll understand when we get there, Jiang Jinmai waved her hand, signaling him to follow her lead. As they opened the door to the Qingjiao dormitory. Holy crap! The luxurious interior left Ju Chu utterly speechless, unable to hold back his exclamation. Chapter 6 I treat you as my brother, but you actually want to. He imagined what the youth education apartment would be like. But after seeing it for real, he was still shocked. Their well-decorated house, with a single door and a single household, is estimated to be 50 to 60 square meters. As soon as you enter the main door, you will see the living room, which is fully furnished. In front of the long sofa is a solid wood coffee table. The sunlight shines in from the half-floor length windows, and the whole room is warm. The bedroom next to the living room still has a double bed. The two large bags beside the bed should be bedding, and a brand new air conditioner is hung on the wall. Not to mention the separate kitchen and dry and wet separated toilet. Compare this youth education apartment with the undergraduate dormitory where he lives. This place is simply heaven. Undergraduates all have 4-person or 6-person dormitories. Ju Chu is lucky to be in a 4-person dormitories, but even the 4-person dormitories do not have private bathrooms and kitchens. Students from the entire campus have to take a bath in the big bathhouse at the northernmost part of the school. Fortunately, it rained heavily today and the weather was mild, otherwise I would have to run to the northernmost part to take a shower after sweating all over. If Jiang Jinmai was a man, he would have just stayed in the room and not gone back. After all, the youth education apartment is also designed for teacher couples to a certain extent. Jiang Jinmai has already laid on the bed in the bedroom, holding the air conditioner remote control in her right hand and gently pressing it. A cool breeze is blowing. Even if she lies down, her figure cannot be completely buried, and she is still 2 high hills. But the shape is still different from when she is standing. This should be what Susha said, looking from the side, it is a mountain, and looking from the side, it is a peak. And her left hand pointed to the bedroom door. The meaning is obvious, that is, let him close the door. He actually walked towards the direction of the door for some reason, and didn't react until his hand touched the cold door handle. As an 8-foot man, how could he be driven like this? After all, you are just my sister's best friend. Even if he needs her help, he has to create an equal environment first, otherwise he will be bullied by her in the future. Seeing Ju Chu standing in front of the door without moving, Jiang Jinmai propped up her head with her arm and looked at him sideways. What's wrong? The idea of negotiation that had been decided was dispelled by her eyes. With the momentum of a sister, he was not allowed to resist at all. Her long hair fell through her fingers, and she became lazy unconsciously because she was lying down, and she didn't know when she took off her shoes. Do you want to help me clean up the room? Jiang Jinmai pointed to the 2 large bags and her suitcase on the ground. But she quickly saw Ju Chu's resistance, and added leisurely, when you are done, how about I treat you to a meal? Cleaning up the room is definitely one of the most tiring jobs in the world. And Ju Qin's task was just to help her move the luggage, but he didn't say he had to help her clean up the room. Sorry, sister, I have something to do. My friend and I have an appointment to play basketball tonight. We are going to dinner now and will be there soon. I am afraid I don't have time to clean the house. There are skills to rejecting. For example, when facing a girl like Jiang Jinmai, you must pretend to be pitiful. Jiang Jinmai also heard that this was just his excuse. She turned over and sat up from the bed, looking at Ju Chu carefully. She obviously didn't have any expression, but for some reason, Ju Chu always felt that she was smiling. If it's inconvenient, forget it. Jiang Jinmai sighed and pointed to her luggage. There is a pair of slippers in it. Please take them out for me. I will change and clean up myself. She has agreed to leave, so I should always meet this last request. That's right, after taking out the slippers, I will slip away. The password is for zeros. Ju Chu dialed the password lock to 0, and the suitcase opened as expected. A lot of daily necessities came into his eyes. His eyes quickly shuttled through the room, and after a few simple rummaging, he soon found the slippers. It was the kind of blue indoor slippers that could cover the forefoot. But he didn't take it out directly, but quickly closed it. Of course, what he wanted to see was not just a broken slipper. Is there no underwear? Or underwear or something would be enough. After a careful search. What are you looking for? Jiang Jinmai's voice rang in his ears. He was startled and almost fell backwards. When did she come here? At this moment, she was looking down at him with a condescending look. I'm not looking for anything. Ju Chu just glanced at it quickly and lowered his head, putting the clothes back on. I was just looking for slippers and couldn't find them. Really? Jiang Jinmai said with a smile, although she obviously wanted to cover it up. If you are looking for those things, then I can tell you that you are looking in the wrong place. It should be here. As she spoke, Jiang Jinmai closed the suitcase and gently unzipped the next layer. Of course, that kind of thing can't be put together with ordinary clothes. A very crisp zipper sound. Ju Chu wanted to restrain his desire to look up, but his eyes still raised disobediently. Just when the zipper was pulled and the lid was about to be opened, he felt a pain in his head and was knocked several times in a row. This is to punish you on behalf of your sister. Who told you to be so lewd? Jiang Jinmai knocked for a long time before she felt a little relieved. Ju Qin repeatedly promised her that her brother was a little boy. How could this be a little boy? But these were just the body's communication. For some reason, her brain did not resist his actions. Why did she even feel a little happy? It must be because she was too tired from traveling today and her mind was a little confused. It must be like this. Chapter 7. Come and make my bed. Ju Chu really wanted to report her for stinging. Any normal man couldn't resist this kind of temptation, right? Sister, you can't blame me for this. Ju Chu held his head with both hands and did squats, but still wanted to quibble. After doing 50 squats in a row, his breath was a little messy. As for why he did this kind of thing, it was because he was punished by Jiang Jinmai. He clearly didn't see anything, but he was punished. The key is that he can't resist. If she complained to Ju Qin that he wanted to peek at her underwear, it might not be as simple as 100 squats. So you want to blame me? Jiang Jinmai had already put on the slippers she took out of the luggage, and was sitting on the bed counting one by one. While counting, she didn't forget to teach him, doing squats is also good for you, okay? It's easier to find a girlfriend if you have a good figure. It's a pity that I don't want to find a girlfriend. After doing more than 70, Ju Chu's legs began to feel numb and weak. If it was before the military training, he probably couldn't even do these. But now he is in front of Jiang Jinmai. She is still counting one by one for herself. She can't lose face. Otherwise, it is easy to be seen as a silver-plated spearhead, good-looking but useless. Even if his legs are broken, he will finish these 100. Why? Jiang Jinmai asked, and did not forget to cheer him up. 82, try hard and you will finish it. There is no reason. Women will only affect my speed of drawing the sword. Besides, I am not so lonely that I have to find someone to accompany me. That's good. Jiang Jinmai listened to his words and nodded thoughtfully. Then love is just finding someone to accompany you. Ju Chu was stunned for a moment, and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Was she serious or joking? But soon she laughed again. Oh, why should I talk about love with a child? Where did I count just now? Forget it, if you can't remember, just start from 0. Ju Chu didn't want to do it anymore after hearing her words. If he did another 100, he might not be able to stand up tomorrow. Even Huang Shiren wouldn't exploit him like this. Now his legs are almost numb. I'm not sure whether a woman will affect your speed of drawing a sword, but it will definitely affect your speed of squatting. Jiang Jinmai sighed, curled her lips and looked like she was disappointed. Is it not possible? How can a man say that he can't do it? Ju Chu wanted to give her a middle finger, but he thought that he would be easily trained, so he could only swallow his anger. Although he was so cowardly now, sooner or later she would beg for mercy from him. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. That's enough. Ju Chu did another 20 or so, and she finally waved her hand to indicate that it was over. When he stood up, he felt as if there were sandbags hanging on his legs and he couldn't use any strength. He still had to exercise well. Chu gritted his teeth and decided not to let her look down on him. He would start running tonight. Although it was the old campus, the scenery was still good. Come and sit down. Jiang Jinmai waved her hand and leaned to the side to make room for him. Although his legs were weak, Chu still forced himself to walk in front of her without any expression. Just in front of the bed, he almost stumbled. Jiang Jinmai finally couldn't help it and burst out laughing. She stood up and held his shoulders with both hands and pressed him on the bed. You should have a good rest. I'll pack my things and go to dinner together. She didn't forget to gently tap Chu's thigh muscles while speaking. A burst of tingling sensation pierced his heart, and Chu's expression was distorted for a moment. Har 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 har. Jiang Jinmai laughed loudly, dodged Chu's hand that was about to grab her, and ran directly to the suitcase. Take out all the things and put them on the bed. Chu had almost rested. Just as he stood up, something was thrown to him. Chu subconsciously reached out to catch it, and found it was a white towel. Go and wet the towel for me. I need to clean the mattress before I can put anything on it. Chu walked through the living room to the private bathroom and turned on the faucet. The cold water stimulated his body and made him shudder. In such hot weather, of course he had to wash his face. The sky outside the window had turned completely golden. It was almost 6:30 in the afternoon, and the sun was moving towards the horizon little by little. The room where Jiang Jinmai lived was on the 8th floor, with an excellent view and angle, just in time to observe the sun that was about to be swallowed by the building in front. Towel. Thank you. Jiang Jinmai took the towel and nodded with satisfaction. After wiping both sides of the mattress and the bedboard, it was time to put the mattress on it. Since it was dormitory supplies from the school, it was just a simple white color. As soon as the quilt was shaken, the dust stirred up and caused Jiang Jinmai, who was close to her, to cough. Although the sun was setting and the light was not very good, the floating dust-dyed golden could still be seen. There was no need to turn on the air conditioner. In this case, of course, the window should be open to let in some fresh air. Chu stepped forward and opened the window, and a unique fragrance of the midsummer night came to his face. Come and help me make the bed. 10 minutes later. Jiang Jinmai lay on her back on the bed. It was so tiring to clean the room. You have to know that she had only made the bed and had not yet cleaned it. But soon her eyes shifted to Chu, who was sitting next to her. There was free labor around her, right? She could coerce or bribe him to help her. She was really smart. This was the right way to be her best friend's younger brother. I'll take Chu out for dinner later, and I'll start typing when I come back. I have been collecting materials for a day today, so I should be able to write the plot more smoothly. The most important thing about love novels is the feeling of youth. As an old lady, she was already a little out of control. Unexpectedly, Chu who suddenly appeared gave her some inspiration. Gurgle. It seems that Chu's stomach is growling? Looking at his embarrassed look, it should be like this. Let's go eat. Okay. Chu rubbed his stomach and nodded. It's really not his fault that his stomach is growling. He originally wanted to save energy in the dormitory. So far today, he has only eaten a box of instant noodles for lunch. I didn't notice it when I was making the bed just now. I felt a little hungry when I relaxed. After all, she promised to treat me to a meal. I have helped her do so many things, so it shouldn't be a big deal to eat for free. It's definitely nothing. I haven't eaten at school yet. Is there any recommended store? Jiang Jinmai stood in front of the youth education apartment, a little unsure of the direction. I usually eat at the West Canteen, which has fewer dishes. The East Canteen is the closest to us now, and has a full range of dishes, but they are all average. The North Canteen is far from us, and it mainly serves barbecues. Then let's go to the North Canteen. Jiang Jinmai patted his shoulder rather generously. It's been a long time since I had beer and barbecue. Chu was shocked. Shouldn't girls from an educational family eat sea cucumbers and abalone? What are you surprised about? I'm also a human being. Jiang Jinmai had already swept away the shared bicycle, turned around and found that he was still standing there, smiled and winked at him lightly. In an instant, thousands of peach blossoms filled his mind again. Chapter 8. How can he be so good at flirting? Jiang Jinmai is indeed different from the lady he imagined. On the asphalt road of the school, the sky had completely darkened, but due to the heavy rain in the afternoon, there were almost no clouds in the sky, and the moonlight was very bright. A white figure passed by quickly on a bicycle. Her long hair was blown by the wind, and her clean and fair face drew a beautiful arc on the campus. She had already attracted the attention of many passing boys. When she passed by, she would leave a little sweet scent, but it would disappear if the distance was too far. Only Juchu could barely smell it if he followed closely, but she was riding too fast. "It's better to be careful," Juchu shouted loudly from far behind. He was not as cool as Jiang Jinmai. Because it was downhill, his right hand was still gently holding the brake to prevent the speed from causing danger. In his impression, ladies of noble families should all sit in luxury cars and need servants to serve them. Even if they need to ride a bike by themselves, they should move forward slowly and elegantly. How could they be so careless about their image like now? What's the difference between this and his casual sister? Oh no, since they can become friends, their personalities must not be very different. But there are still differences between the two of them. She is so beautiful. If she gets hurt in the face by overturning, it would be a waste of nature. When she stops the car, I must teach her a lesson. Because when Jiang Jinmai heard the voice and turned back, her eyes were full of confusion. It was obvious that she didn't hear her voice because it was blown away by the wind. Although the distance between the North Canteen and the staff dormitory is relatively far, because she rode very fast, they saw the lights in the distance in less than 3 minutes. Before, the North Canteen had always been a normal dining style. Because it was too far from the dormitory area, the business was very poor. But later, I don't know who came up with the idea to transform this place into a food stall. The current business can only be described as hot, especially when night has just fallen. There are almost no tables vacant. Their bicycle parking area was marked on the outer edge. Jiang Jinmai braked beautifully and twisted her body. She actually used the shared bicycle to drift. What kind of core strength does this require? Without the front of the car moving, the rear of the car actually crossed a semicircle and just aimed at the small gap between the two shared bicycles. After performing such a difficult move, Jiang Jinmai remained calm and didn't even turn her head. Her right leg was supported on the ground, and it was just tilted a little bit to support the bicycle. Her legs are really long. And looking at the strength she used to ride the bicycle just now, although she was wearing long pants, Juchu seemed to have seen her legs with smooth muscle lines. It would be a pity not to use such good legs to ride a tricycle. While thinking, Juchu parked the bike in the gap near Jiang Jinmai. He was obviously not so cool, and even had to push the bike in manually. "Sister, although you are very good, riding a bike at night is more or less dangerous." Although it was a reminder on the surface, it was actually a bit of a way to save his face. After all, his riding skills were completely defeated. Sure enough, she is a lady from a noble family. Not only is she good at studying, but her physical fitness is also so good. Is this the legendary all-round development? So what exactly can't she do? If anyone can marry her in the future, then it's okay. Jiang Jinmai swung her long legs and got off the bike directly behind the seat. This was a very elegant and chic way of getting off the bike, which Juchu had only seen in some professional riders' videos. Anyway, Juchu would definitely not be able to do it. So what qualifications does he have to advise Jiang Jinmai to be careful? In the end, I was the clown. What did you say when you were riding just now? The wind was too strong and I couldn't hear the sound clearly. Jiang Jinmai pushed the pin of the shared bike back, and even returned the bike, and only heard the bike make a hello sound. Because it was dark, she subconsciously moved closer to see Juchu's expression clearly. "I'm just a little worried because you're riding too fast." Juchu scratched his head a little embarrassed. "I didn't expect you to be so good at riding." She pulled the distance so close, who could resist? Jiang Jinmai in the night is still very different from that in the daytime, and she is obviously more gentle at night. Of course, it could also be because of the hazy night, and everyone might look gentle and beautiful. But her eyes were very bright, full of curiosity, and she blinked as she looked at him. Clear and fair skin, high nose bridge, smooth jawline, no matter from which angle, there is almost no flaw. The long hair blown by the wind added a lot of charm to her at the moment. Some hair was scattered on her forehead, but she didn't notice it. So, should I help her take care of it now? I remember Jiangnan's #1 deep love once said that this seemingly unintentional physical contact is the most provocative. But the person in front of her is her sister's best friend after all. I don't know why, if I tease her, I will always feel a sense of guilt. Is that so? Jiang Jinmai didn't notice Ju Chu's change of mind at all. She tilted her head and thought seriously for a while before answering, then if we are together in the future, I will try to ride slower, so that I can be close to you and you won't worry. Yeah. Ju Chu reached out and put the long hair on her forehead behind her ears. Originally he was still hesitating, but after hearing Jiang Jinmai's words, he finally made up his mind. This was the first time he touched a girl's skin. And it was a more important place like the forehead. Her skin was really as good as it looked, smooth and warm. Although she rode very fast, there was still no sweat on her forehead. Ju Chu was mentally prepared. Even if she opened her hand, it would be nothing. But Jiang Jinmai's reaction was completely beyond his expectations. The girl on a bicycle was speeding on the campus in the previous second, and the next second she became a cute kitten who was being caressed obediently. She raised her head obediently, looked into his eyes obediently, and tilted her little face obediently. This is not right. How did the queen who was supposed to be a queen become a good girl? The only thing that could show her emotional changes was her slightly red face. Jiang Jinmai suddenly laughed, shook her head to shake off his hand, and messed up her long hair again. Only messed up long hair could cover her uncontrollably red face. Really, who allowed him to cut her hair? Who allowed his fingers to slide through her hair from her forehead to her ears? If she hadn't been so patient, she might have moaned the moment her ears were touched. It's really possible. But it should be said that Ju Chu is really handsome, and he looks super good even at such a close distance. His eyelashes are super long and his eyes are very gentle. Most importantly, he is also very good at flirting. Chapter 9, In-Depth Understanding. I've ordered, you can order. Jiang Jinmai pushed her phone in front of Ju Chu. I'll treat you, just order whatever you want. Beiyuan restaurant requires scanning the code to order, so the overall price will be relatively expensive. An ordinary lamb skewer costs even 4 yuan, and by observing the table next to it, the lamb skewers are just a few small pieces strung together. You should know that if it is in the night market, this kind of skewer is only about 2 yuan, and the school directly doubled the price. Jiang Jinmai seemed to not care about the price here at all. There were already 30 skewers of lamb and many other skewers in the order area, and there were 8 bottles of beer at the bottom. The total price is more than 200. Sister, haven't we ordered too much? The two of us will definitely not be able to finish so much. Ju Chu tried to persuade her tactfully. Although I know that her family is relatively wealthy, unnecessary waste should still be avoided. According to Jiang Jinmai's body shape, it is estimated that she will be full after eating at most 10 skewers, and I will only eat 20 skewers. I forgot to ask you, can you drink? Jiang Jinmai propped her elbow on the table, and propped her face with her right hand, squinting at him. Of course I can drink. Ju Chu calmly stepped back, but after all, we are in school, so let's drink less. Hey! Jiang Jinmai looked disappointed, glanced at Ju Chu, and even looked down on him. You are already an adult. You are all college students, why do you care about those things? But she soon thought of something, and reached out to touch his head like an older sister. You just went to college, it's normal to be a little reserved and honest. How about this, you will follow me from now on, and I will take you to eat delicious food and drink spicy food. There was obvious teasing in her tone, but her eyes were sincere, staring at him, as if examining his heart. Although Ju Chu wanted to nod immediately, he still had to pretend to be reserved. If he agreed directly, Jiang Jinmai might not take him so seriously. So he made a thoughtful gesture and hesitated to answer. This is called being reluctant to accept. According to Jiang Jinmai's personality, she will definitely work harder to support him. Support is the first word that comes to his mind. Although he wants to change it, he can't find an alternative option. He suddenly recalled the youth literature he had read before. The male and female protagonists drank together until late at night. The female protagonist got drunk. The male protagonist took her to their hotel. The female protagonist half-heartedly did something unspeakable. That's the paid content. Sister, I don't think we need to order more. We can't finish all this. Ju Chu avoided answering her question, but looked at the entire dish area from top to bottom. Almost everything is expensive. Anyway, if he were to come by himself, he would never be willing to order so much. So it's okay to have a good meal this time. After all, I helped her move the luggage and clean the room. Okay. Jiang Jinmai didn't bother about him not answering her question directly. She took her phone and clicked on the checkout. After paying, she leaned lazily on the back of the sofa behind her. I haven't written anything all day today. It's so sinful. When I think of so many readers who are looking forward to my updates, I have some evil thoughts besides the satisfaction. If I don't update, will they be disappointed and sad? If I post a single chapter saying that I'm late, will readers who don't see the latest plot development feel itchy? Although she knows she shouldn't do this, she will become a bad woman. But she still can't help thinking so. In fact, the new book has been said for a long time, and it has more than 300,000 words. It has been on the shelf for about a month. The average subscription is now nearly 3,000, and it is still increasing steadily at a rate of dozens to dozens every day. As long as she maintains this performance for a month, she can enter the boutique. She took a deep breath, and after stabilizing her mentality, she clicked on her writer's assistant. From here you can see all the book reviews and paragraph comments from readers. There will definitely be haters after the grades improve, but she is not the kind of petty person. When she encounters such people, she will generally delete the comments and permanently ban them. Of course, this is limited to brainless haters. She will read and adopt any serious suggestions from readers in detail. One of the happiest things about writing a book is interacting with these interesting and lovely readers. Today's Qinju has not been updated. Juchu couldn't help but sigh. He has already opened the Qidian software, and Qinju's update time has changed to 1 day ago. Now she only updates 1 chapter a day. It should have been updated at 5 p.m. yesterday, and there is no new chapter at 7:30 p.m. today. Is she going to postpone it? When you are free, reading a chapter of Qinju's book is undoubtedly a kind of enjoyment, but now Qinju is depriving even this simple enjoyment. Don't let him meet Qinju offline. Otherwise, he will definitely lock Qinju in the small black room. Drain all her saved manuscripts. When Jiang Jinmai heard Juchu calling her pen name, her pupils shrank sharply, but soon returned to normal. She turned off the screen of her mobile phone and covered it on the table, then looked up at Juchu. What if she has something to do today? Sister, as a reader, you should urge for updates. Why are you speaking for her from her perspective? Juchu narrowed his eyes in dissatisfaction, but then thought of something. You don't know her, do you? How is it possible? Jiang Jinmai narrowed her eyes to hide her inner nervousness. Although she spoke for Qinju, this does not prove that she is Qinju. It seems that there is nothing obvious about her, and Juchu should not know it. Her heart was beating wildly, waiting for Juchu's next words. As expected, Juchu did not delve into the matter. He just smiled and shook his head, explaining, I thought you had her friends and could communicate with her often. I do have her friends. Although we don't communicate much, I can help you add her if you want to. Jiang Jinmai continued to speak along with Juchu's words, and she already had a bold idea and plan in her mind. I will tease Juchu with 2 identities at that time, wouldn't it be double the happiness? Really? Juchu's eyes widened instantly, and his smile was completely undisguised. It would be great if I could be friends with Qinju. At that time, I can urge her to update anytime and anywhere, and maybe I can give her some suggestions or something. But someone in Qinju's fan group tried to add her as a friend before, but Qinju is a girl after all, and most of those friend requests were not approved and sank into the sea without any news, so Juchu didn't think about it. The one who can write a sweet love story must be a super cute girl. Now that I have this opportunity to make friends with her, of course I want to get to know her more deeply. Chapter 10: The Little Devil Who Plays with People's Hearts. I'll give it to you. Jiang Jinmai pointed to her phone, indicating that he could add a friend. It was a recommended business card, and the username was very simple with 4 big characters. There was only a moon and 2 stars, so it was undoubtedly a small account. Thank you. Juchu clicked on the friend request, and after thinking for a long time, he filled it out. I'm your book fan. Many readers of the second dimension would add a source at the end when calling her to show cuteness. In order to get closer, Juchu hesitated and chose to call her that. Jiang Jinmai looked at the content of his friend request and couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth. That's right, this is her small account, and it is also the channel she uses to chat with book friends. But Juchu's friend request is too stupid, right? No other female author would add such a friend request. Only she could click the approval button in seconds. Chu Quangren, hello, I'm your book fan. I've read all your old books. Y1 Qinju, thank you for your support. After seeing Qinju's reply, Zhu Chu's face flushed a little. Jiang Jinmai watched from the opposite side and saw it clearly. It seems that he really likes his book, otherwise he would not be so excited by such perfunctory 4 words. After a brief thought or thinking about the wording, Zhu Chu clicked the phone screen again. Chu Kuangren, I like Lixiang very much. A really super cute girl. Jiang Jinmai looked at his message and raised her eyebrows. Is this a man's mouth? Clearly, he complained to him that the heroine was too weak before, but now he changed it to cute to please the author. A man's mouth is a liar, and it is really not to be believed. But out of concern for her identity, she still replied politely. Y1 Qinju, thank you for your support. After being sent 2 waves of thank you cards by Jiang Jinmai in a row, Zhu Chu obviously didn't know how to reply. As a soloist, he was not very good at chatting with girls. The reason why he could talk to Jiang Jinmai was because Jiang Jinmai was too proactive. He was completely in a state of being conquered. Chu Kuangren, it's okay, is there any update to Night's secret observation? Y1 Qinju, yes, but it will be a little later. Chu Kuangren, okay. He put down his phone while talking, because all the skewers ordered by Jiang Jinmai had arrived. According to his visual estimation, the number should be about the same, but there is really little meat on each skewer. It's just enough for 1 bite. Because Jiang Jinmai has demonstrated it herself, grabbing the skewer with 1 hand, opening her mouth slightly, and pulling it from the root to the top in 1 bite. Her pink lips opened slightly, revealing her white teeth. Even though she had eaten the meat on the skewer, she was still not satisfied. Her thin and small tongue suddenly stretched out and wrapped around the skewer. In a very tempting moment, the pink and tender tongue dipped some of the yellow and red barbecue ingredients, and did not forget to lick her lips before retracting. Delicious. Jiang Jinmai's expression was very relaxed and comfortable, as if she was savoring the taste of the skewers carefully. She even felt unsatisfied and grabbed 3 skewers and ripped off the meat on them in 1 bite. She completely ignored Zhu Chu's jaw that was almost dropped in shock. If he was caught by such a tongue and lips. What's wrong with Zhu Chu suddenly wanting to make a skewer? How could he envy a skewer? Jiang Jinmai seemed to have completely ignored what was wrong. She didn't even look at Zhu Chu, and ate 4 or 5 skewers in an instant. Don't you want to eat it? Jiang Jinmai pushed the plate of skewers in front of him. If you don't eat it, I will eat it all. Eat. Zhu Chu couldn't say much, so he could only repeat stupidly, while grabbing one and eating it. It's really delicious, the ingredients are all very good, and the meat is also bouncy. Except for being expensive, there is nothing wrong with this skewer. Jiang Jinmai also regained her ladylike temperament, eating the skewers bit by bit. The scenes in the memory never repeated again, as if it was just Zhu Chu's fantasy just now. But he was sure that he had really seen it just now. There is only one truth. She just deliberately made that look to tease him. And seeing that she is looking at him with a smile now, I'm afraid she is also waiting for him to make a fool of himself. She is really a bad woman. Just for a short moment, a pure boy like him had a lot of imagination. Is this the legendary seduction? I feel that the heroines in the youth novels I usually see are too inferior. Not even Jiang Jinmai's finger can compare. Go to the front desk and ask for a bottle opener. Jiang Jinmai pointed to the beer that had just been served on the table. Zhu Chu subconsciously stood up and walked towards the front desk. He found something wrong just after taking 2 steps. It seems that I was manipulated by her without knowing it. I didn't even have any consciousness of resistance, and I just became a little boy who obeyed orders. I was fooled into cleaning like this in the youth education apartment. Zhu Chu secretly made up his mind that he would never be ordered by her to do anything today. If he was ordered again, he would be a puppy. Excuse me, do you have a bottle opener here? The receptionist was also a girl, who looked pretty and estimated to be no more than 20 years old. She should be a college student working part-time. It's there. The girl pointed to the next layer of the shelf and took the stir-fried dishes handed out from the window, and walked quickly towards the customer. Zhu Chu bent down and saw the bottle openers put together in a mess. He took one out and was about to go back. He thought of something and turned back to take out 2 cups. I could blow directly into the bottle, but what if Jiang Jinmai's status did not allow it? Oh no, since we have come to this kind of food stall, what about high status and low status? It's obviously the same. Holding a bottle opener in his left hand and a stacked cup in his right hand, Chu strode back to his seat. I must be tough later and let Jiang Jinmai know that he is not that kind of casual man. He lowered his head and encouraged himself secretly. Here you go. Chu should have taken the bottle opener to open the wine directly, but he handed it directly to Jiang Jinmai. That's the kind of momentum he should have. Please help me open it. Jiang Jinmai raised her hand, indicating that both of her hands were filled with skewers. This should not be considered as being ordered by her. After all, she was really inconvenient. And she used a tone of request, so it definitely doesn't count. Do you need a cup? Yes. Chu poured the opened beer into the cup and handed it to her. Thank you. At some point, Jiang Jinmai took the cup with her right hand. Just now, her hands were full, but now she can take the cup. Looking at her meaningful smile, it seemed as if she had seen through what he was thinking. Chu couldn't help but hold his forehead. He was actually being manipulated. What a terrible little devil she is, playing with people's hearts. Chapter 11. A girl who is a junior in college holds a gold brick. Cheers. Jiang Jinmai raised her small glass. Cheers. Chu also raised his glass. Although they were just two ordinary glasses of snow beer, the exquisite face of Jiang Jinmai opposite them made the beer look much more upscale. The ordinary glass seemed to have turned into a goblet, with the red wine in the glass shaking in color, and the skewers on the plate also obediently turned into steaks. The noisy sounds around were replaced by elegant violins. Sure enough, the mood for eating depends not only on what you eat, but also on who you eat with. But the next second, Chu felt the edge of his glass sink, and it was pressed by her finger. A slow-motion smile commonly seen in short videos was performed vividly by Jiang Jinmai. Even a standard Dragon King crooked mouth was attached. Chu really wondered how much tacky she had seen. Seeing Chu still holding the cup in a daze, Jiang Jinmai, who had finished posing, couldn't help laughing, and explained while laughing, "It's just that watching the earthy videos is quite interesting. When I touched the cup just now, I subconsciously wanted to try it." She laughed so hard that her ladyship burden was thrown away by her. Her eyebrows were curved, her peach eyes narrowed into a slit, and her apple muscles were swollen. She was not a thin girl, but she was thin where she should be thin and fat where she should be fat. Although she was 26 years old, the apple muscles on her cheeks had not completely faded. According to science, women will look obviously old after the age of 25, but Jiang Jinmai's skin condition is even better than some of Chu's classmates of the same age. She is completely different. She has the mature femininity that girls don't have, and she doesn't have the aging and fatigue that women of the same age should have. Chu was silently looking at her, and his expression inevitably looked a little serious. Jiang Jinmai misunderstood his meaning. Seeing him so serious, she thought he was angry. Hey, don't be so serious. I'll punish myself with 3 cups, okay? Jiang Jinmai raised her head and drank a glass of wine. When she finished the second glass, Chu finally couldn't stand it anymore. Although he didn't like drinking very much, he couldn't just watch Jiang Jinmai drink one glass after another without any expression, right? Wouldn't she think that he was really fussy about that little thing? I suspect you are looking for an excuse to cheat for the wine. Chu drank it all in one gulp, snatched her bottle and poured a glass. But his behavior soon triggered Jiang Jinmai's complaints. You clearly have several bottles over there. You still want to snatch the bottle from me. I wish you all your wishes come true in your 4 years of college and get out of singlehood soon. Jiang Jinmai raised her glass. This time I'm serious about it. Thank you, sister. I also wish you happiness and good luck in your 3 years of doctoral studies. Chu smiled and touched his glass to the edge of her glass. That's for sure. Jiang Jinmai tilted her head, her eyes wandering as if she was imagining something, but she soon returned to normal. Perhaps it was also the expectation for the future. There was light in her eyes, as pure and bright as the moonlight outside. This hopeful expression was really touching. I don't know what her wish would be for the 3 years of her doctoral degree. Anyway, during my 4 years of college, I didn't have such a strong obsession with dating. But if I meet someone who is suitable and I like, it seems that there is no problem in dating. If we talk about specific standards, at least 1/3 of Jiang Jinmai's charm should be required. In about half an hour, the skewers on the table had been almost finished. Of course, the 6 bottles of beer ordered, except for 1 bottle left by him, were almost finished. Why was it different from the fantasy? Jiang Jinmai didn't mean to be drunk at all. She drank more heavily than him, but she didn't react at all, and her face didn't even turn red. She was even better mentally than when she didn't drink, and her speech was even clearer. When I was an undergraduate, it was your sister who accompanied me to drink. I remember that we ordered a box directly. Jiang Jinmai held her face, and there was a hint of sadness on her slightly raised face. Zhu Chu believed what she said anyway. Zhu Qin could drink a box by herself, not to mention her. It's just that it's hard not to find it funny to think of two girls stepping on boxes to drink. In fact, before I met your sister, I didn't know how to drink or ride a bike. Jiang Jinmai sighed, and the faint smell of alcohol rushed straight to his nose. For some reason, as if with a little fragrance, Zhu Chu resisted the urge to take 2 sips. Because it's easy to be regarded as a pervert. But the question now is, what kind of monster is his sister, who would drag such a lady to drink and race? Is this the legendary dragging a decent woman into the sea? Then Jiang Jinmai was still a standard lady at that time. Are you kidding me? Jiang Jinmai widened her eyes and stretched out her hand as if to slap him, like a cute kitten raising its paw to scare people. Not afraid at all. When I was a child, I was always educated to be gentle and focused on my studies, which led to me being out of tune with my peers at that time, until I met your sister later. I can imagine it. Zhu Chu could already imagine how his sister had seduced and coaxed Jiang Jinmai to reshape her. She now looks like a queen, and Zhu Qin has at least half of the credit. It's hard to imagine what the lady looked like back then, and what kind of inhuman influence she received. If possible, I would like to feel it. After all, he seems to have never seen an authentic lady. If it were me back then, I would definitely not take the initiative to talk to you, let alone let a man enter my dormitory. Jiang Jinmai spoke while turning the cup in her hand, and the cup and the table made a rustling sound. But your personality is completely different from your sister's. Jiang Jinmai suddenly changed the subject and turned to Zhu Chu. I originally thought you would have the same strong and domineering personality as her, but I didn't expect you to be this kind of tolerant and humble, good-tempered. I'll take it as a compliment. Of course I'm complimenting you. If you weren't so young, I would have wanted to do it. Her tone was a bit exaggerated. A girl who is 3 years older than me is a gold brick. You are 8 years older than me, and you are almost 3 gold bricks. Zhu Chu also said it in a half-exaggerated tone. Just when Jiang Jinmai was about to take over the conversation. The noise of the microphone clanged and scared Zhu Chu. Following the source of the sound, it turned out to be the girl at the front desk who pointed out the location of the bottle opener to him. The cafeteria is about to close, but there will be a small event before closing. The winner can take away the small gifts we prepared. As she spoke, the girl took out several puppets from somewhere. Okay. All the men and women in the cafeteria were excited. Jiang Jinmai was still sitting there quietly, her expression didn't change much, and her eyes were narrowed with no emotion. If he hadn't seen her hands shaking when he looked down, Zhu Chu would have really thought that she had no interest in the event. Chapter 12 Women are Girls Until Death. Our game rules are very simple. The girl in charge of the host stretched out her palm and pressed down, signaling the restless crowd to calm down a little. Only one person per table can participate. The participants drink a bottle of beer at the same time. See who finishes it first. The top 3 can get the small prizes we provide. Following the direction of her finger, the prizes were a stuffed bear that was half his height, a stuffed panda with a big head, and a relatively small Doraemon stuffed doll. Zhu Chu looked around and saw that many people were already rubbing their hands, especially those with female companions, each of whom was determined to get the doll. The rules of the game were simple and rough enough. Although it was in the school, it was completely the style of the beer festival. Liancheng had held a beer festival. He had also been there when he was a child. He had seen contestants drinking a bottle of beer in one breath without blushing or breathing heavily, just like a barrel of wine without any emotions. There was no need to worry that moralists would come out and condemn drinking in school when such activities were held in the school. Sister. Zhu Chu's eyes fell back on Jiang Jinmai. Seeing her expression, Zhu Chu swallowed back what he wanted to say. He originally wanted to confirm whether she wanted the doll, but just by seeing the shining eyes and tightly pursed lips, he knew that she wanted it, even very much. Although she was already a 26-year-old female doctor, she still had no resistance to this kind of fluffy and cute doll. Is this the legendary woman who is a girl until death? What? Jiang Jinmai heard him call her and turned her head to look at him. Nothing, I just want to go up and give it a try. Ju Chu said with a smile, and sighed, Sister, do you think I can succeed? I think it's difficult. Jiang Jinmai also looked around, and after seeing many big men who looked like they could drink a lot, she still looked back at Ju Chu with some worry, but if it's you, I don't think it's difficult. Is this encouragement? Of course, why not? Jiang Jinmai shrugged, and patted his shoulder like an intellectual sister. At least you can get a bottle of wine from the store if you go up, right? Indeed. Ju Chu nodded, pointing to the pile of skewers scattered on the table. You have to drink some of this money back anyway. You have ambition. Jiang Jinmai poured 2 glasses of the remaining wine on the table, and pushed one to Ju Chu. Do you want to drink some to whet your appetite first? Okay. The wine in the small glass was drunk up in one gulp, and Jiang Jinmai even wiped the non-existent wine drops from the corners of his mouth with unsatisfied feeling. You should know when to stop. It's just a little doll. There's no need to fight too hard. Does this count as caring? For some reason, maybe because he drank some wine, Ju Chu obviously felt that he had become much bolder. This kind of ambiguous question would never appear in his mouth when he was sober. But the atmosphere was so heated that he didn't feel awkward even if he said so. As long as he didn't feel embarrassed, it wouldn't be embarrassing. Jiang Jinmai didn't answer his question immediately, but looked at Ju Chu very seriously. As if he wanted to see some emotional fluctuations from it. How could Ju Chu be seen through so easily? And based on the experience of this day, he also summed up how to deal with Jiang Jinmai's eyes that were sometimes as deep as the night and sometimes as charming as a fox. That is, don't look. Just like now, he was concentrating on looking at Jiang Jinmai's lips. Very red. But it's not the kind of charming red painted with lip gloss or lipstick, on the contrary, it's a very natural and healthy red. She seemed to have noticed Ju Chu's gaze, and the corners of her mouth twitched a few times. She was even cuter. Why not? Jiang Jinmai smiled a little, and her body suddenly leaned forward, lowering her whole body a little. Her lips were replaced by raised eyes. Her eyes were full of smiles, but clearly mocking. Ju Chu could only turn his head and stop looking at her, but he was still stubborn. Thank you for your concern. Please all contestants come to the stage. Ju Chu looked around and only moved after seeing someone coming forward. The staff had already set up a row of tables, and a bottle of wine was placed on the tables at a short distance. Although there were quite a few people in the store, each table was limited to one person, and some people who didn't have girlfriends did not participate in the competition, so there were only about 10 people standing in front of the stage. Since the top 3 were decided, the competitive pressure was not that great. He mixed among the crowd and tried to make himself less outstanding, because this might make him a fortune in silence. But the next second, the discussion from the audience disrupted all his plans. The handsome guy on the third left is so handsome. You said he's a handsome guy, how could he not be handsome? I don't know if he has a girlfriend. If not, he should have one, otherwise he wouldn't be able to go on stage to fight for the doll. Can't he go on stage just because he likes it? Boys who like stuffed toys are super gentle and cute, okay. Ju Chu was embarrassed when he heard this on stage. If he wasn't too burdened by being an idol, he would definitely pull up his sleeves to wipe the sweat from his forehead and dig a crack in the ground for himself to get in. So why did he come up to grab this doll? It stands to reason that such a doll is not expensive, and the quality of gifts that can be given out is generally not very good. But for such a thing, he had to stand on the stage and blow beer from the bottle. Some people have already raised their phones, ready to record the video of them drinking. Come on. Jiang Jinmai clenched her fist at him, and judging from her lip shape, it should be these 2 words. Ju Chu nodded. The waiter opened the bottles one by one. All the contestants had already picked up the bottles. Begin. After hearing this, the bottles were already turned upside down, and the wine gurgling out of the bottle mouth was almost completely sucked into the stomach by the contestants. After only half a bottle of wine, Ju Chu felt that his stomach was swollen. Originally, he had eaten a lot of skewers and drank a few bottles of wine that night. The boiling beer bubbles pushed up straight, and Ju Chu took a breath before he successfully finished the bottle of wine. Next, we will announce the top 3. The host took the lead in picking up Doraemon and walked straight to Ju Chu, the third place, this handsome boy. There was an exclamation from the audience. No one expected that Ju Chu, who looked gentle and refined, could drink so much. But he just nodded politely, turned over and jumped off the stage, and handed the doorman in his hand to Jiang Jinmai. Originally, the gift was intended for her, as a return gift for dinner tonight. But the crowd watching obviously didn't think so. Voices of envy and blessings came one after another. Jiang Jinmai blushed, which was rare, and reached out to gently pat Ju Chu's head, but did not clarify. Chapter 13 Don't Move. With the end of the event, the prosperity of the North Canteen has completely faded. Ju Chu and Jiang Jinmai were also on their way back to the dormitory. It's just a small path leading to the youth education apartment. As for why we took the small road, of course it's because they have become the subject of everyone's discussion and Jiang Jinmai doesn't want to continue to attract attention. The youth education apartment is at the easternmost end, and the main road is of course a planned asphalt road that you can ride your bike all the way. Of course, this is also the road they came by. The path passed through a dense forest, and the moonlight could not penetrate under the thick and dense trees. There is only a small tiled path in the middle, starting from the north cafeteria and ending at the library. The library is very close to Qingjiao apartment. There aren't many people in this grove during the day, but at night it becomes a great place for a tryst, which is why it's called the Lover's Forest. On normal days, if Ju Chu was alone, he would never go in. But now with Jiang Jinmai by his side, for some reason, he stood up straighter. Thank you, doorman. After being so nervous that her face blushed in the cafeteria, Jiang Jinmai has now obviously calmed down. It's okay. Ju Chu waved his hand generously, as long as you like it. I like doorman very much. Jiang Jinmai held the doll in front of her and looked at it, then threw it into the air and caught it when it fell. Of course, I mainly like its treasure bag. Me too. But you gave me the doll in public, aren't you worried that those little girls who like you will rush over and kill me? Jiang Jinmai turned her face away, but due to the poor light, Ju Chu couldn't see her expression at all. It was just, there was a hint of jealousy in her voice. He wasn't sure if he had heard it wrong. Why would she be jealous? And although he had thought of many things she might say, he never expected her to ask such a question. Just after I gave the doll to her, there was a burst of booing in the cafeteria, with some people even shouting, "Be together," and "Marry him." Jiang Jinmai remained very calm. After taking the doll, she reached out and touched his head. Coupled with their appearance, many people suspect that they are siblings rather than lovers. The facts seem to be more inclined towards siblings. They will probably think we are siblings. Ju Chu still wanted to use the siblings as an excuse. After all, this is only the first day we met. If I say something else, wouldn't it seem too frivolous and shallow? Don't underestimate women's perspectives. Jiang Jinmai sighed and said faintly, anyway, no matter what, there were people taking pictures in the cafeteria at that time, and now I am bound to you. I'm sorry, sister. My first reaction was to give you the doll. No need to explain. Jiang Jinmai interrupted his excuses directly, it has already happened. I originally wanted to pretend to be an innocent girl and have a good relationship during my doctoral studies, but now many people know that we have an unclear relationship. It has become more difficult to have a relationship. Ju Chu had no idea what to say to comfort her. And for some reason, he always felt like he was being blackmailed. Because if what Jiang Jinmai said is true, then doesn't it mean that if she doesn't have a relationship during her doctoral studies, she should blame herself? What a strange logic. But he didn't know how to refute it for a moment. So, you have to be responsible for me. Jiang Jinmai pushed Ju Chu, and Doraemon's big round face just rested on his arm. This. She has said so now, what should I do? Ju Chu's forehead had already started to sweat. You know, he had never been in a relationship, let alone had any experience in dealing with this kind of mature woman. Judging from the pig-kissing teen novels he was following, this must have happened because the heroine liked the hero. But that is a novel after all, and Qiu Zhenyue is clearly a little girl whose thoughts are easier to guess. She is completely not on the same level as a mature woman like Jiang Jinmai. Jiang Jinmai is like a top-level boss slaughtering a village of novices. They will be slaughtered without any chance to resist. Don't you want to be responsible for me? I have clearly already. Ju Chu stepped forward, covered her mouth, and took her into the bushes to peek at the scene on the bench. There was a small clearing in the woods ahead. The moonlight shone on the bench, and the figure reflected in it was very familiar to him. The person sitting on the bench was the monitor of their class, and the other person in the intimate action was actually League Secretary. You know, the two of them usually sit upright and look dignified, and the league secretary was showing off her affection with her high school boyfriend on WeChat Moments a few days ago. They should not have broken up yet, but now they are in this dark woods. Jiang Jinmai's mouth was suddenly covered, and just when she was about to break free, she saw Ju Chu's expression. Following his gaze, I saw a man and a woman sitting on a bench in front of me. Ju Chu must have known them, and he covered her mouth to avoid alerting the enemy. The two of them were so close that she could even hear Ju Chu's breathing. So now the two of them are spying on others. Although I saw others having an affair, for some reason I had the illusion that I was the one having an affair. It was as if I was the one being spied on. Ju Chu has a unique masculine scent. As soon as you smell it, you will feel that he is a fresh prey. It is really hard to refuse. Even if he does something to himself now. After all, the couple on the bench had gone from simple kissing to caressing, and with the still bright moonlight she could see that the man's hands were really naughty. Although she had seen the video before, this was clearly her first time watching a live broadcast. Jiang Jinmai said softly, and patted Ju Chu's shoulder to signal him to release his hands that were covering her. Ju Chu woke up as if from a dream and quickly let go of his hand. When did he get so close to Jiang Jinmai? Night, Grove, girl. This development direction is a bit strange. Ju Chu hurriedly took a step back and wanted to explain, but the noise he made alerted the man and woman on the bench. They had already discovered someone peeping. The two of them quickly put their clothes in order, stood up, and walked towards Ju Chu. Ju Chu suddenly felt uneasy, but he was afraid he couldn't run away now, and even if he did, his identity would probably be recognized. After all, the other party is a squad leader and a league secretary. If I were discovered, I would definitely be hated. Just as his mind was racing to think of a solution. A warm feeling was close to his face, and Jiang Jinmai's soft voice sounded next to his ear. Don't move. Chapter 14, What if I was hugged by a queen? Ju Chu's face was very close to Jiang Jinmai's, and the ambiguous feeling of fit made Ju Chu's face itchy. Of course he would feel even more itchy inside. If you don't want to be discovered, just hug me. Jiang Jinmai had hugged Ju Chu without knowing when. Ju Chu hesitated, and when he heard the footsteps getting closer, he gritted his teeth and hugged her. Jiang Jinmai's body trembled noticeably, and it seems that she is not completely immune to this kind of physical contact. Because his face was so close to hers, Ju Chu could even feel her slightly hot cheeks. Ju Chu's body was facing the big tree, so if the squad leader and the league secretary were to see him, they would only be able to see his back. After feeling that Ju Chu listened to her, Jiang Jinmai withdrew her head from his ear and buried it in Ju Chu's arms. He had a very chiseled face, a smooth forehead and a high nose bridge that rested on his shoulders. In this way, from the outside it looks like two affectionate young lovers are kissing in front of the tree. The sounds of the entire world fell silent. There weren't many people here to begin with, and the only sounds left were Jiang Jinmai's breathing and their footsteps. They are obviously righteous, but now it feels as if they are having an affair. It's just very strange. Jiang Jinmai didn't feel much better in his arms. Girls' bodies were originally very soft, and at this moment Jiang Jinmai was getting softer and softer. Ju Chu even wondered if she might slip off if he didn't hold her. Although both of them maintained a healthy distance, that distance gradually dissipated under the pressure. Fortunately, this place is under the shadow of the trees, unlike the man and woman on the bench illuminated by the moonlight, and outsiders may not be able to see clearly. And most people will automatically avoid them after seeing that they are a couple. Sure enough, the squad leader let out a whoosh and a rough voice let out a sigh of relief. The league secretary immediately returned to normal and even started to act coquettishly towards the squad leader. Squad leader, why don't we go to another place? No problem. Where do you want to go? How about off campus? Hate. The two people's voices became farther and farther away, and the teasing became quieter and quieter. Until it disappears completely. Logically speaking, he should let go at this time. But he didn't know why. Why did he feel this lingering feeling? He didn't want to let go of the girl in his arms at all. After all, this was his first time hugging a girl and he had no experience at all. Although his brain wasn't completely blank, his actual state just now was almost the same. Now that the pressure is gone, he can instead enjoy the touch of Jiang Jinmai's body. In the summer, both of them wear less clothes. After Jiang Jinmai's outerwear was wet by the rain, she did not look for clothes in the suitcase. She just wore the white shirt that she wore when hiding from the rain. The white shirt was very thin, and although it wasn't see-through, every part of her body was touched to some extent. His face was almost pressed against Jiang Jinmai's long hair, and the soft and smooth long hair left a deep impression on his lips. "So how long are you going to hold me?" Jiang Jinmai said softly, having already let go of the hand that was holding the corner of his clothes. I forgot." Zhu Chu could only let go of her hand reluctantly, but when he looked at Jiang Jinmai, he had an apologetic expression. "I was too excited, I thought they didn't go far." "Oh." Jiang Jinmai had the same expression as Lu Yu, but her emotional intelligence was obviously much higher than Lu Yu's. She did not say, "Really? I don't believe it." Besides, she was the one who planned this matter in the first place, and it was impossible for her to hug someone she didn't like. She didn't feel at all wronged by being held by a young boy. Not to mention the heart-pounding feeling, the fresh youthful scent on Zhu Chu made her sure that she was not at a disadvantage. This kind of grove is indeed a place of trouble. They better get out of here quickly. Otherwise, if they are seen by others, they will easily be suspected of being the kind of couple who hide in the woods. She didn't want to be the heroine in such a plot. "Let's go." Jiang Jinmai strode out of the grove. "Let's go out first." Zhu Chu hurriedly ran forward 2 steps to catch up with her. The grove was not very big, and they saw many affectionate couples along the way. However, Jiang Jinmai had no intention of stopping at all, as if she was just an ordinary traveler. "Who is that?" Jiang Jinmai turned around and asked as soon as she walked out of the grove. "The monitor and league secretary of our class." Zhu Chu answered without hesitation. If it were someone else, he definitely wouldn't tell it, but how could he not tell Jiang Jinmai, who had just accompanied him through such a thrilling experience? It's normal for them to be in a relationship. You should bless them when you see it. Jiang Jinmai continued speaking along with her own thoughts, but suddenly seemed to realize something. Could it be that one of them has a partner? Yes, the league secretary had a boyfriend from high school. A few days ago, he was showing off their love on his social media account. I don't know if they've broken up yet. Zhu Chu tried his best to tell the story in a plain way, and told the story from a neutral perspective instead of expressing likes or dislikes. If that's the case, Jiang Jinmai sighed, I still hope she breaks up. That's right. Alas. Zhu Chu was originally quite calm, but when he was drawn by her sigh, he actually sighed as well. Why are you sighing, kid? Jiang Jinmai narrowed her eyes and put on a stern face, with the expression of a seasoned lover. What does a little kid know about love, hate, and vengeance? You're not much older than me. Zhu Chu subconsciously retorted, little girl, don't act old. But he soon realized from Jiang Jinmai's unconcealed smile that he had fallen into the trap after all. Thank you, I also feel like I'm still a little girl. The reason why she said she was a little boy was probably because she wanted to hear him call her younger. Is this the old lady's obsession? It seems that even an old lady has a heart that wants to pretend to be a girl. Her smile was obviously very happy, and she looked completely calm even without any facial expression control. To be honest, if Zhu Chu hadn't known in advance that she was already 26 years old, he would have thought she was just a girl in her 20s. Actually, long-distance relationships are difficult. Jiang Jinmai laughed for a long time before she recovered. Without the youthfulness of her smile, her mature charm would obviously overflow again, and she would turn back into a mature woman of 26. So the love that can hold on is true love. Yes, it's true love. As Jiang Jinmai spoke, she looked up at the moon. The bright moonlight cast a layer of silver in her eyes, making her look very lonely. Chapter 15, Master-Servant Contract. The atmosphere suddenly became depressing. All their way to the entrance of the youth education apartment, neither of them spoke. Well, sister, I will just send you here and won't go in. Zhu Chu took the initiative to say after careful consideration. After all, they had only known each other for one day, and it was already so late, it would not be a good idea to go to the girls' room at this time. It is easy to make the other person think that you are a pervert, thus raising their guard. Anyway, she will also study at Lian University in the future, so there will definitely be a chance for us to meet. Okay. Jiang Jinmai did not refuse. She just turned around and looked at Zhu Chu carefully. Finally, she patted his shoulder deeply and said, Thank you for helping me move things today. It's okay, it's okay. Zhu Chu waved his hands and was about to say that this was all his job, but was choked back by Jiang Jinmai's next words. How about this, I rent you to be my servant. What? Zhu Chu pointed at his nose, totally unable to believe that she wanted him to be a servant. When he heard the words, rent you, he thought the plot would be like the youth novels he had read, where the heroine rents the hero as her boyfriend, and then the two fall in love and really get together. But Jiang Jinmai wants me to be her servant, which is simply unbearable. After all, I am an outstanding college student of the new era. How could I be a slave to others? If it was a gigolo, it could be barely acceptable, but if it was a servant, then it was totally unnecessary. Besides, she is my sister's friend. If she knew that I was working as a servant for her best friend, I would be doomed. I could consider running away from home. Of course not. Zhu Chu refused seriously. You don't have to worry about your sister finding out. This master-servant relationship only exists when you and I are alone, and I'm not renting you for free. This is the amount for 1 month. Jiang Jinmai spread out 5 fingers. 500. The education I received as a child doesn't allow me to do such a thing. Zhu Chu refused. 500 yuan is actually not a small amount of money, as his monthly living expenses are only 1200 yuan. Adding this 1000, it will be 17,000. His quality of life will undoubtedly increase dramatically. But how could he agree to something so humiliating and detrimental to the country? But Jiang Jinmai's next words shocked him so much that he stood there in shock, unable to recover for a long time. 5,000 yuan. Jiang Jinmai shook her head slowly, with a confident expression, as if she was sure that he would not refuse. He really wouldn't refuse. Of course, it's not because of the 5,000 yuan. Being a servant to such an outstanding woman is something that many people would be eager to do. And she probably wouldn't assign herself any difficult tasks. Even if she didn't give him money, he would still do something for her. Now that she gave him money, it was like earning 5,000 for free. Who could refuse this? Anyway, he couldn't refuse it. Even if Zhu Qin, his sister, looked down on him, so what? With so much money, he didn't even have to go home. Sister, you are really good at judging people. What do you need me to do? On this issue, Zhu Chu must have a flexible bottom line. If you don't make money when you have it, you're a bastard. Make as much as you can in a month. So you agreed? Jiang Jinmai squinted at him. She didn't expect that 5,000 yuan would be enough. She originally thought that such a high-quality male college student would require her to pay some money herself. The result was only $5,000. At that time, you only need to apply for a scientific research project and then put Zhu Chu's name among the members to offset the money. Of course, if Zhu Chu wants to get the money, he must help her. Then she will throw all the projects to him, so that his university life can be more fulfilling. Then I will definitely agree. You won't go back on your word, will you? Zhu Chu raised his eyebrows and tried to provoke her. The money has been transferred to you. Jiang Jinmai put the phone back into her pocket and pointed at Zhu Chu's phone that was vibrating in his pocket. Zhu Chu slowly took out his mobile phone, and there was a red transfer. Wish you a prosperous new year, 3000.00. After counting carefully, she found that there were indeed 3 zeros before the decimal point. She was not lying to herself. These are the deposits. If you do a good job, the remaining 2,000 will be paid to you at the end of the month. Thank you, sister. Zhu Chu was so moved that tears were about to fall. Is this how generous his sister's friend was? The eldest lady's style is indeed different. It would be nice to follow her from now on. When I have time, I must ask Zhu Qin if he has any friends like this and introduce a few more to him. Who knows, he might become rich before graduation. But he never expected that Jiang Jinmai had already schemed against him. It's okay, it's okay. Jiang Jinmai waved her hand gently. Although she couldn't help wanting to laugh inside, she still managed to remain calm on the surface. As expected, they are just children, so easy to deceive. Sister, what can I do to help you? Zhu Chu still wanted to ask more clearly. After all, he was still a young man. If she forced him to provide her with special services, then he would definitely. Extra money. Of course you can come without paying any extra money. Before Zhu Chu could finish his imagination, he heard Jiang Jinmai's voice. It's very simple. You just need to help me do 3 things. This plot unfolds. Why does it sound so much like Jiang Minut's request in the Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber? Does he also need to require that Jiang Jinmai's demands be in line with the ethics of the underworld? First, you must be available at all times except during class time, and you are not allowed to refuse my legitimate requests. Second, you need to do all their housework and make me at least one home-cooked meal every day. Third, if I apply for a new project, you will be an unpaid researcher. If you violate the rules more than 3 times in a month, all your money will be deducted. Yeah, no problem. After careful consideration, Juchu agreed without raising any issues. The worst that can happen is that I can just hang around her every day and treat her as if I had a girlfriend. Moreover, these requests seem more like requests for a mate than requests for servants. Of course, this is not a problem. He has to agree even if it is just for 5,000 yuan. That's good enough as long as you agree to it. Jiang Jinmai nodded with satisfaction, took out her mobile phone and pressed the red stop button. It turned out that she had been recording. Juchu stretched out his hand to grab it. After all, this was too embarrassing. What master-servant contract? Even Japanese light novels don't follow this routine anymore. Picking up a fox demon witch enchantress at the beginning was such an old routine. But he also saw a book called Flying in the Air and accidentally knocked over a witch on the Qidian ranking list. Plus, Jiang Jinmai now wants to hire him as a servant, which makes it hard for him not to wonder if it is the Renaissance. It's okay. Jiang Jinmai stretched out her arms and placed her palms on his chest to prevent him from getting close. I've already said that as long as you listen to me, I won't tell anyone. Of course you have to listen to me. Chapter 16. After being threatened. Juchu walked all the way to the dormitory, thinking about what had just happened as he walked. Although they had separated downstairs in the youth education apartment, Juchu could still clearly feel the strength and softness of her palm when it pressed against his chest, as well as the threatening tone of her voice. It seemed as if I would be doomed if I really didn't obey. Although Juchu didn't care much about her threat, for some reason, he felt a sense of worry in his heart. It's that kind of sixth sense of worry, always feeling like I've made the wrong decision. I'm afraid that earning these 5,000 yuan a month is not as easy as I thought. After all, they have developed into a master-servant relationship on just the first day of knowing each other. Who knows what will happen if we wait a month? He didn't dare to think about it. Remember to come back early next time. As soon as he stepped into the dormitory building, he was reminded by the dormitory manager who was walking out of the duty room. Women around 40 years old are also very elegant, at least that's what his roommate said about the dormitory manager. But after seeing Jiang Jinmai today, he now feels that this dormitory manager is too ungraceful and too vulgar. She is only about 1.6 meters tall, has the air of a common woman, and even speaks in the standard tone of a shrew. He couldn't help but miss Jiang Jinmai's beauty and personal charm more and more. In fact, if she had asked him to stay, he might have stayed there. After all, Jiang Jinmai's bed was a double bed. Juchu pushed open the dormitory door and turned on the light switch in the darkness. As expected, the place was empty with no one around, and my roommates didn't come back as they said they would. It was still inevitable that he felt a little lonely. After all, it was quite lively earlier today with Jiang Jinmai accompanying him. Oh, no, loneliness is the norm. This morning he was planning to spend a lazy and leisurely day lying in bed, but he didn't expect that he would be transformed to this extent by Jiang Jinmai in just one afternoon. As Juchu was thinking, he turned on the faucet and washed his face when his cell phone rang. When I clicked on the message, it turned out to be a notification from Qidian software, when Adolescent Fantasies Come True has been updated. Juchu instantly wiped the water off his hands and clicked to read. It's already 11 o'clock at night. According to his long observation, Qinju had never updated so late before. Maybe something delayed me today. But it doesn't matter. Just update it. Even if he read it word by word, it only took him less than 5 minutes. It's really too short, isn't it? Plus, her descriptions are rather everyday, so there is almost no development in the plot. To put it simply, although it is very good to watch, it is almost the same as not watching it. It was a waste of time that I interrupted washing my face. I originally thought that the male and female protagonists would make some huge progress. That's the result. The more Juchu thought about it, the angrier he became. He decisively wrote a line of words in the chapter review. The kiss pig sauce is so watery. Oh no, this description doesn't seem right and can easily lead to misunderstandings. Delete it decisively and type a new line. That's it, that's it. It still seems not working, a little too abrupt. If I push for more updates like this, what's the difference between me and ordinary readers? Today's dog food intake is not enough. This comment seems to be pretty good and should be noticed by Chinsuchin. 10 minutes later. Juchu was already lying on the bed, browsing his phone. The phone suddenly vibrated. The review has been replied. He had just clicked on the chapter review to see the other party's reply when the huge blue V directly blinded his eyes. Look at the nickname again, Kiss the Pig. After clicking on the avatar, it was indeed her. The list of works below does not lie. So, I was replied to personally by the pig. Woo woo woo, Mom, I have made it. The pig kiss has come back to me. He could no longer control his emotions, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. This was the first time he had received a reply from Kiss the Pig, so what would she write in her reply? Is it about the plot or the chapter review? Chinju, good review, please don't review again in the future, dog head. When she interacts with readers, she is indeed very different from the gentle and elegant person she shows in the books, and becomes much more funny and funny. Juchu's palms were already sweating. He wiped his hands on his clothes and tapped the screen to reply. Book friend Chu, I want to expose that a well-known author in Qidian tried to silence readers. Kiss the Pig, exposure is invalid, crawl. Looking at the message, she replied again. He seemed to see a girl lying on the table, looking at the computer with a cute smile on her face. But this is indeed the case. Jiang Jinmai is staring at the computer screen, refreshing it from time to time to see the latest comments. Normally, she doesn't reply directly to chapter reviews, unless they are particularly interesting. Just like this one. He dares to say that he is a gagger. He has never seen a real gagger. The girl's long legs were casually crossed together in a cross-legged position. Since it was a youth education dormitory with only one person and the room was too hot, she only wore a pair of super short hot pants. There is absolutely no excess fat, just very tight muscle lines. One hand supported his face while the other hand moved the mouse. Her eyes reflected light, and it was obvious that she cared enough about the reader's evaluation, and it was impossible for it to be as easy as climbing, as she said. The most important purpose of writing a book is definitely to make money, but when she first entered the industry, she really didn't make much money. At that time, what was more important was to share the stories she wrote. As a person with a strong desire to share and who loves words, online writer has become her favorite career. She considers herself a relatively talented writer, having achieved some success with just her second book, but her original ideas have never changed. When writing a book, the most important thing is to write it for readers. As long as they enjoy reading it, your efforts will not be in vain. Over the years, she has met many talented and ambitious authors, but they always lack the luck to become famous. Just like the 9 moves she recommended to Zhang last time, they belong to this category. She always likes to support newcomers because she knows how difficult it is for them. After brushing for half an hour, she finally stretched herself. The number of new chapter reviews had decreased, so she might as well wait until tomorrow to read the rest, so she closed the computer. When he opened his phone, he found the message Juchu sent to his secondary account. The small account is also the author's account. Juchu would rather send his late-night messages to his dear pig Jiang, whom he has never met, than to himself. Is this the importance of mystery? Am I being too straightforward? Chu Kuangren, Kiss Pig, I just finished reading your new book. I am that netizen Chu. Chu Kuangren, I am very excited to see that you replied to me, so I want to ask if there will be any updates tonight. Chu Kuangren, are you typing? Then I won't bother you. I wish you a lot of inspiration. Jiang Jinmai looked at the phone screen and couldn't help but smile. Now she knows more and more about Juchu's identity and information, but he knows nothing about himself. This is the feeling of playing with ignorant boys. Chapter 17, Not Knowing How to Be Lucky. The cell phone rings. Juchu, who was originally immersed in sleep, forced himself to open his eyes and picked up the mobile phone beside his pillow. The caller ID showed Jiang Jinmai's name. Since it was summer, the sky outside the window was already bright, but it was only 6:30. Why did she call me so early? You have to know that he is a college student now, not a high school student who had to get up at 6 in the morning. There are no classes during the National Day holiday, so if he doesn't sleep until noon, can it still be considered a leisurely college life? If it was a call from an ordinary person, he would definitely hang up and turn off the phone. But she is Jiang Jinmai after all. I just received 3,000 yuan from her yesterday. She must have something important to talk to me about. Otherwise, why not pick up the phone and see? Are you still sleeping? Jiang Jinmai's energetic voice sounded as the phone was connected. Yes. Zhu Chu replied weakly. Judging from the sound, Jiang Jinmai should have gotten up. She is indeed a PhD student and is so self-disciplined. He couldn't compare anyway, and now he just wanted to continue sleeping. But how could Jiang Jinmai give him this opportunity? Hurry up and get dressed and go for a run. I'll be downstairs from your dormitory. Oh, what? Zhu Chu's sleepiness was instantly dispelled. He couldn't help but look at his phone screen again to make sure it was exactly 6:30 in the morning. Running early in the morning is indeed a healthy behavior, but it is torture for a lazy dog like him. And Jiang Jinmai has already arrived downstairs. Won't it be a bit too much if he didn't come downstairs? I'll give you 5 minutes. See you downstairs. Jiang Jinmai didn't continue talking nonsense, but she didn't forget to add a threat at the end. If I don't see you within 5 minutes, you will bear the consequences at your own risk. Then there was a beep, and Jiang Jinmai had hung up the phone. How could she be so confident that she would go out and run with her? Even if I agreed to be her servant, it doesn't mean I have to listen to her in everything. But Zhu Chu still got up from the bed, put on a short-sleeved shirt, washed up quickly, and ran out. Because she only gave herself 5 minutes. She might be late. In fact, if you think about it, there is nothing wrong with getting up early. Exercising early is actually good for your body. And running with such a beautiful woman is something many people dream of. Am I not appreciating the blessings I have? By the time he ran to the dormitory door, Zhu Chu was already out of breath. From a distance, I saw Jiang Jinmai sitting sideways on the electric bike looking at the dormitory door. Her upper body is still a white short-sleeved shirt, but her lower body is different. Yesterday they were long pants, but today they are shorts, the kind that only reach mid-thigh. Fully show off a pair of super white long legs. Unlike many girls who lack exercise, you can see clear muscle contours on her legs. Her calves are not thick, but they give people a very powerful feeling. Just these legs were enough for him to stare at for a long time. Not to mention her face, which was full of vitality against the morning light. Her eyes were slightly narrowed, and she did not react too much after seeing Zhu Chu. She just tilted her head and looked at her phone. 30 seconds late. When Zhu Chu came closer, Jiang Jinmai handed the phone screen directly to him. He actually used a stopwatch to time it. He originally thought that 5 minutes was just an adjective, but who would have thought that it was a number that needed to be calculated? If I come out to see you, I have to tidy myself up a bit. Zhu Chu tried to defend himself. Forget it. Jiang Jinmai was not fooled by his words. She stretched out her finger and pointed at the corner of his eye. Wipe it. Zhu Chu wiped it gently and found a small piece of dirt. It's so embarrassing. I feel like what I just said was complete nonsense. Especially after being directly exposed. He really just casually poured some water on his face without washing it carefully. Who could have imagined that Jiang Jinmai's eyesight was so good that she could see such small dirt clearly? It seems that I must clean up my act in the future. I can't be so embarrassed like this again. By the way, is this the electric car you bought? Zhu Chu pointed at the small white electric bike she was sitting on. Or you can call it Little Lamb, which might be cuter. That's right. Jiang Jinmai reached out and touched the front of the car. Although it's second-hand, isn't it pretty good? It's really good. Zhu Chu nodded sincerely, took a step forward and touched the front of the car. Very smooth feel, cool feeling is very suitable for summer riding. But now Zhu Chu just wanted to sigh, isn't she really too rich? I just arrived at the school and I can buy an electric car that looks at least 80% new. You have to know that even if it is the cheapest, it will cost about 1,000 yuan. He specifically checked online, but was ultimately discouraged by the price. But now he receives a salary of 5,000 yuan a month from Jiang Jinmai, so perhaps these things can be put on the agenda. Let's go for a run. Jiang Jinmai patted his head and pulled him back from his imagination. After the run, how about I ride it and take you around the campus? Sure. How could Zhu Chu not agree to such a good thing? The school is quite big, and it is just right to ride around it on a lamb. Besides, Jiang Jinmai was the one who took him on the bike, and then she would sit on the back seat. It's so romantic just thinking about it. People along their way must be extremely envious. Get on. Jiang Jinmai had already ridden on the scooter. I'll take you to the playground first. Zhu Chu crossed over the back seat, but because the chassis was too low, he could only curl up his legs. You'd better hold me to ensure your safety. Jiang Jinmai reminded, turning half her head. Zhu Chu hesitated. Although he wanted to hug her waist directly, he ended up just grabbing her clothes. Or maybe I am just too timid. Jiang Jinmai felt her clothes being grabbed, but she didn't say anything. She just lowered her head and smiled softly. I had already agreed to let him hold me, but in the end he just grabbed my clothes. He is indeed an innocent little boy. He would be so shy even if he just has ordinary physical contact with the opposite sex. Chapter 18, It's a perfect body, okay? The back seat of the scooter was much lower than the front seat, and Zhu Chu was tall. When he stepped on the pedals on both sides, he almost broke the limit of human body distortion. Since it was early in the morning, most people were sleeping in the dormitory, and there were almost no people on the road except for some people going to have breakfast. The originally bustling campus seemed exceptionally quiet, with only the sound of the wind in one's ears and Jiang Jinmai's relatively even breathing. Needless to say, Jiang Jinmai's waist is really very thin. Zhu Chu grabbed the corner of her clothes with both hands, causing her clothes to be tightened, highlighting her slender waist. He had learned the term "yin yi zhang" when he was in school before, but at that time he thought it was just an exaggeration. How could someone's waist be so thin? But after seeing Jiang Jinmai's waist today, he had to apologize for his previous ignorance. Zhu Chu's heart was filled with turmoil, and he really wanted to hug her directly. But I'm worried that I'll be considered a pervert. It seemed like he was the only one who was so conflicted. Jiang Jinmai, who was riding a bicycle, didn't react at all and didn't even turn around to look at him. I just grumbled quietly. Be gentle on my dress, it's going to rip. Okay. Zhu Chu quickly agreed and let go of her hand. If you often ride an electric car, you probably won't feel anything. After all, it's okay even if the passengers let go of their hands during a smooth ride. But there is a clear ban on electric vehicles in Zhu Chu's hometown. There is no such thing as electric vehicles on the streets. As a result, his body couldn't help but tense up a lot, and he bent hard and almost completely curled up behind Jiang Jinmai. The risk factor has obviously increased, but at least there are some things to help. But 2 or 3 minutes was just a moment in Zhu Chu's mind. Why are the playground and dormitory so close to each other? If only there were a few thousand miles, it would be great. He clearly hasn't enjoyed enough. It was not until he got off the car that he realized his forehead was covered in sweat and his back was a little wet. Jiang Jinmai was as calm as ever, as if the touch just now was just a small matter to her. He even took out some tissues from his pocket and handed them to him. Wipe your sweat. As she spoke, she took out a long white towel and hung it around her neck. You can tell at first glance that the towel is not new, as it has thick or light fluff and a slightly old white color. It should be the kind of sweat wiping towel used by many fitness people. So why did she only give herself toilet paper? It was obvious that he also wanted to use a towel, especially Jiang Jinmai's towel. There was definitely her scent on it, the kind of towel that was often used to wipe sweat and had a strong body odor that was only fully visible after wiping. When I think of how she often hangs a towel around her neck, and how the towel absorbs all the smells and the tenderness of her skin. Why is he actually a little excited? This is not right, he is definitely not such a perverted person. It must be because she woke me up this morning and I got up too early that I had this unrealistic fantasy. But unfortunately, Jiang Jinmai seemed to see through his thoughts. She took the towel from her neck and handed it to him directly. Don't like toilet paper? How about towels? No. Zhu Chu refused subconsciously, but he felt a little regretful at the same time. It's a very reluctant thing to do, but I have to say that he really doesn't like toilet paper. When it becomes soft, it will become a ball of pulp. It's okay. Jiang Jinmai sighed. How could she not know what Zhu Chu was thinking? In this respect, he is much worse than his sister. Back then, Zhu Qin just took it and used it directly. And he didn't hide his fetish at all. He even praised the smell while using it, which made her feel embarrassed. It is because of these reasons that she has never thrown away this towel, and even takes it out to wash it from time to time. Zhu Chu was not straightforward at all, and it would be fine even if he said it directly. I felt like he was myself back then, and I was like his sister Ju Qin back then. They are all constantly shaping a person to make him or her more suitable for a relationship. As for Ju Chu now, she can feel that her emotions are still dominated by guilt. Forget it, don't think about those things anymore. She shook her head, as if trying to shake everything out of her mind. Let's go running. She hung the towel around her neck again. Since he didn't take it, she let it go. Simply take off your short-sleeved shirt to reveal your sports bra underneath and start at the starting line. Ju Chu nodded and followed her. But soon, he was shocked by Jiang Jinmai's extremely strong physical fitness. Logically speaking, shouldn't female doctors be weak and nerdy? Why does Jiang Jinmai run so fast? All I saw was a pair of big white legs moving non-stop. It was not difficult to follow behind in the first 2 laps, but by the 3rd lap it was already a bit difficult. This lap is 400 meters, and the physical fitness test for female students in college is only 800 meters. Jiang Jinmai, however, didn't feel anything at all, and didn't even breathe heavily, which made Ju Chu start to doubt whether his physical fitness was too poor. After another 2 laps, Ju Chu could clearly feel that his legs were not working properly. You have to know that Jiang Jinmai was not jogging at a speed, but was running at a speed of almost 1,000 meters in per minute. It would be fine if he stopped after running 1,000 meters, but if he kept running like this, his legs felt as heavy as if they were filled with lead, and although he tried very hard to hide his panting, he was unable to suppress it at all. Although she has a good figure, she doesn't look bloated or cumbersome after running. The sportswear highlights her figure very well. She looks well proportioned and fit. She must be the kind of girl who always works out. Big breasts and a thin waist, it's simply a perfect body, okay? Call. She ran 6 laps before she stopped. He picked up the towel hanging around his neck and wiped his face. After running, her eyes were shining and she reached out to gently wipe the sweat from Ju Chu's nose. His physical condition was pretty good. Although he looked exhausted and out of breath, at least he could keep up with me. He is handsome and has a good body. Where can you find such a good boy? Chapter 19, What if I was touched by a queen? Who? Ju Chu took 3 deep breaths in succession before he evened out his breathing rhythm. He couldn't sit down right after running, so he followed Jiang Jinmai and walked slowly around the playground. He could hardly utter any complete sentences and could only listen to Jiang Jinmai's incoherent words. You still need to exercise regularly. Jiang Jinmai was just a few centimeters away from him. While wiping the sweat off her face, she said, "How can you be my servant without a healthy body? My general exercise plan is to run 6 laps each morning and evening. Just follow me. This shouldn't violate our agreement, right? And it can also give you a chance to exercise. How great! It's already the end of summer. This kind of strenuous exercise won't be suitable in autumn and winter, so I should take advantage of the opportunity to exercise now and get into a better shape." As she spoke, she suddenly turned around and looked at Ju Chu, with a strong and powerful attitude. "Show me how your figure is now." As she spoke, she was about to lift up Ju Chu's clothes. He definitely couldn't give in to this. After all, he was selling his art, not his body. Jiang Jinmai narrowed her eyes and couldn't help but click her tongue several times. She leaned forward, grabbed the hem of his short sleeves and lifted it up. He has a very fair complexion, but he even has the outline of 6-pack abs. Of course, it's just the outline, and there are some signs of disappearing. The most obvious thing is that there is a thin layer of fat on it. This fat cannot be seen clearly with the eyes, you still have to touch it with your hands to feel it. That's right, her hand was now on Ju Chu's belly. A man's body that feels real. And it's a young and beautiful body. Of course she knew that her choice of words was a bit inappropriate, but this was the first word that came to her mind. But the next second, her hands were grabbed by 2 big hands and thrown down. Ju Chu's face was almost red. Although he had imagined Jiang Jinmai to be a hooligan, he didn't expect her to be so reckless. She actually touched his belly in public. Even if there weren't many people around, it would be bad if someone saw it, right? This is not the behavior of a lady from a noble family at all. It is almost no different from that of his hooligan sister. Or in other words, do these mature women all use the same method? I didn't expect that. Jiang Jinmai clicked her tongue several times, squinting her eyes, but a smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. She couldn't suppress her smile at all. She had imagined that Ju Chu had a good figure, but she didn't expect that he even had abdominal muscles. This is definitely earned. Can you be a little more reserved? Ju Chu put on his short-sleeved shirt again. This time, in order to prevent Jiang Jinmai from repeating the same trick, he deliberately grabbed the corners of his shirt with both hands. What's wrong? Jiang Jinmai looked indifferent, her big eyes full of innocence and temptation. The morning light changed colors in her pupils, and she actually had the temperament of a bad woman. I'm your master. What's wrong with touching you twice? So if I pay to hire a maid now, I can touch her as I please. Ju Chu curled his lips. This wrong idea of hers must be corrected. The most important thing is not to correct her because she was touched. It's just that she said it was just because of the master-servant relationship, which made him feel insecure. Because the master-servant relationship is based only on money. If she gets a new servant tomorrow, wouldn't he also touch her casually? Oh, that's not right. Even if she just touched me casually, what does it have to do with me? At most, I am the younger brother of her best friend, so it seems that I have no right to control who she touches. I just feel really unhappy and I have to say it out. If that's the case. Jiang Jinmai's eyes turned and she moved closer to him. If you can't pay for it, then how can you touch it? Ju Chu's heart skipped a beat. Oh no. He seemed to have really fallen into the trap of the bad woman. Of course he knew how to answer, but he would never say directly that they could be boyfriend and girlfriend. What if Jiang Jinmai was just playing around? He just wanted to see a pure boy like him make a fool of himself. Wouldn't that mean he was just being sentimental? And as the old saying goes, those who cannot get what they want are always in turmoil, while those who are favored are fearless. Of course, I have to be close yet distant, so that I can also gain her favor and thus get more money from her. Emotions are mutual. How about this? I won't take advantage of you. Can we just touch each other? Hearing his words, Jiang Jinmai finally couldn't help but burst out laughing. She had guessed that Ju Chu would reply to him like this, but she didn't expect him to actually say it. Is this considered counter-teasing? I originally thought that he was just the kind of little boy that I could easily control, but I didn't expect that he had such a skill. It seems that I have underestimated him. I just wonder how many surprises like this he will give me? But she definitely cannot continue with this issue, as she may be easily counterattacked. By the way, can you ride an electric bike? No. Faced with Jiang Jinmai's sudden question, Ju Chu could only answer seriously, but he quickly added, but I think it shouldn't be difficult. As long as you keep your balance, it's no different from riding a bicycle. In that case, you can take me for a ride later. How about being my exclusive driver from now on? Wow, it's only been one morning and I've already added 2 identities. But if I become her driver, does it mean that the electric car will be at his disposal most of the time? The thought of this no longer made him feel sleepy. In any case, electric bikes don't require much effort to pedal, and are very useful at least in places with ups and downs like schools. Okay. Ju Chu agreed immediately. Let's go. Jiang Jinmai threw a small black object at him. Ju Chu quickly stretched out his hands to catch it. It turned out to be the key to the electric car. Press the small button in the middle and a key pops out from the middle. Insert it into the keyhole and twist it gently, and the lock will be automatically unlocked with a click. Push the car forward and the support will pop up automatically. In stark contrast to Ju Chu's reserved attitude when he was sitting in the back seat just now, Jiang Jinmai hugged Ju Chu's waist as soon as she got in. I'm not wearing a skirt, so why can't I sit astride? But the body was not completely attached. If it weren't for this, she would really like to hug her personal driver tightly. But her hands had begun to become dishonest, groping his belly. Chapter 20, Forbidden Food. Sister, don't you think that what you did was too much? After Ju Chu knocked her hand away, he rubbed his stomach, which was hurt by being pinched. Those are just normal reactions. If she wants to do it, she should anticipate the consequences. How can it be justified that officials are allowed to set fires but ordinary people are not allowed to light lamps? Just as he was about to turn his head, he felt his head being pushed and unable to turn back. Jiang Jinmai's voice was gentle and soft. I won't touch you, okay? Just focus on driving. The tone was very calm, with a hint of coaxing a child. Ju Chu knew very well that he was obviously at a disadvantage, so it would be good to get a guarantee. And if she didn't pinch me and just touched me, I would still enjoy it. With a twist of his right hand, the throttle opened instantly. Since it was his first time, he only twisted it a little bit, and the electric car only moved forward a little bit symbolically, and the speed was terribly slow. Hurry up. Jiang Jinmai patted his back, her tone clearly dissatisfied. We are riding an electric bike. The speed is not as fast as the bicycle next to us, are you ashamed? Sure enough, several shared bicycles passed by them quickly, and a few curious guys even turned around to look at their electric bikes, as if they had never seen one ride so slowly. We call this safety, okay. Ju Chu stepped on the accelerator a little harder. The car's speed suddenly increased, which scared Jiang Jinmai, who was sitting behind it. She subconsciously hugged Ju Chu's belly. Because the morning wind was relatively cool and they had just been delayed for so long, the clothes on Ju Chu's back had already dried a lot. The smell was even stronger on the slightly dried clothes. Ju Chu had a strong masculine scent that tempted her nose. If she were an ordinary young girl, who was just a freshman in college, she might have been captured by now. Just like the heroine of another online novel by great writer Honey Duck, so easy. How could a girl in real life be so easy to get? It's just a straight man's fantasy. But we can't blame him too much. After all, he is a single guy writing a love story, and it is very good that he can write like that. But the author named Zhu Zhao is very good at writing love stories. He can not only realistically describe the personality traits of the female characters, but also well show the emotional mentality of young men and women in love. Anyway, she thought it was pretty good. As for why it didn't catch fire, it's the time and the fate. As long as you open your mind, you will feel much more relaxed when sitting in the back seat. She didn't even think about those weird things. Now she felt that her heart was clear. But for some reason, Ju Chu was sweating again and her body was very tense. It's dangerous to ride a bike like this. Actually, riding a bike is very simple. There's no need to be so nervous. Jiang Jinmai has already let go of Ju Chu's hand. But this action did not achieve the effect she had imagined, which was to make him relax. On the contrary, after losing Jiang Jinmai's embrace, Ju Chu didn't know how to ride. I can only hold the front of the car more nervously. It's really not that complicated. Jiang Jinmai sighed, and it was obvious that he didn't pay attention to her good intentions. If he were to be her own driver at this level, she was still a little worried. It seems that I have to give the electric car to him and let him practice well. After all, I can't be a guinea pig. Where do you want to go? Ju Chu's car slowed down significantly. Now they are at a crossroads. If they go north, they will reach Lover's Forest. If they go south, they will reach the school gate. If they go forward, they will reach the youth education apartment. Don't ask me questions like that. As the space in the back seat was too small, she could only stretch restrainedly. Then let's go south. Ju Chu didn't pay any attention to what she did. He just felt that the direction of the electric car had shifted a little bit. Fortunately, the problem is not serious and I can turn it back. He squeezed the brakes slightly, and when the speed was within a controllable range, he turned the car around and drove out towards the south gate. Unlike the north gate they first met, this south gate is a small gate, and leading out from here is a famous snack street. Of course, this kind of snack street is not open during the day, but the restaurants are open as usual. As expected, he parked the electric bike next to a store, pointed at the sign above, turned his head and looked at Jiang Jinmai. Have you had breakfast? No. She nodded honestly. Although this shop is just a tin house on the roadside, there is no doubt that the food is delicious. She was not very hungry at first and just wanted to eat some bread, but she was attracted by the aroma and Ju Chu's temptation, and her stomach began to growl. The four big red characters, Juhi Restaurant, on the green signboard were all peeling, and the door was made of glass that was obviously not resistant to wind. She was worried whether this thing could withstand the cold wind. After climbing a few steps, you will enter the hotel. The layout inside the store is relatively clean, and it looks like the sanitary conditions are not particularly bad. When the proprietress saw someone coming in, she hurried out from the kitchen with a smile on her face. When she saw Ju Chu, her smile became even brighter for some reason. Jiang Jinmai observed Ju Chu, and he obviously didn't know the little thoughts of the proprietress. Only women understand women best. The first thing the lady boss said was to Ju Chu, without even looking at Jiang Jinmai, "Welcome. Are you here again?" "That's right." Ju Chu nodded and looked up at the menu posted on the wall, which had a rough picture of each dish. He didn't look at the proprietress, which made the proprietress look a little disappointed. Jiang Jinmai estimated that the proprietress was about 24 or 25 years old, probably about the same age as herself, but the way she looked at her made her feel uncomfortable. Of course, this is understandable. After all, Juchu is handsome and a top student at Qidian University. He also seems a little dull, especially when it comes to relationships between men and women. It's really hard not to be targeted by others. For some reason, she felt a strange desire to protect Juchu, as if he had become her forbidden love to some extent. The kind that doesn't allow others to interfere. Chapter 21. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because your sister smiles. If it were an ordinary little girl, she would have pulled Juchu away in this situation. But how could Jiang Jinmai be so similar to those little girls? Not only does she want to eat here, but she also wants to eat it with great relish, and show off her affection at the same time, so that the proprietress can see what means are. What do you want to eat? After a quick look, Juchu had roughly decided what he wanted to eat. The dishes in the small restaurant are limited, and he likes to eat meat, so it is easy to identify him. The sweet and sour pork I had at his house last time was quite good, with thick slices of meat and a sweet and sour taste. A large plate only costs 30 yuan, but you have to know that this plate is enough for 2 people. Me? Jiang Jinmai propped up her head, her eyes not turning to the dishes, but staring at Juchu closely. Eat something lighter, after all, you can't eat too greasy food so early in the morning. Juchu looked into her eyes for a moment but still gave in. Although he felt that he was already somewhat familiar with Jiang Jinmai, he would still be attracted by this kind of eye contact. My heart was pounding, although I didn't know why. Could it be just because of the inherent strategic attribute of her peach blossom eyes? But since she didn't want to eat something too greasy, the option of sweet and sour pork was directly ruled out. How about a stir-fried meat, scrambled eggs with tomatoes and a plate of cold bean curd? Juchu pointed at the picture on the wall and asked Jiang Jinmai. Jiang Jinmai didn't even move her eyes away, she just kept looking at Juchu. Okay. That's all, Juchu said to the proprietress. Running can indeed improve skin quality. Jiang Jinmai's skin is crystal clear and white, as pure as uncut jade. On the other hand, the proprietress has dark skin and some wrinkles on her face due to years of hard work. Although she can be considered a beauty when viewed alone, she is obviously inferior to Jiang Jinmai. Okay. The proprietress responded with a smile and walked towards the kitchen. She knew very well that her feelings for Juchu were simply a liking for a handsome guy, and there was no other feeling involved. The person opposite him should be his girlfriend. Although she looks much older than him, they are really a good match for him. Maybe this is the perfect match. She has run a shop outside the university town for some years, and sometimes she can't help but fantasize about how nice it would be if she were a student of this university. Her age is not much older than these college students, but she got married and started working after graduating from junior high school. I work every day, and when I have free time, I look through the fence at the atmosphere inside the university. It's hard not to envy. This is called youth. I am just working hard for a living. As it was early in the morning, not many people came out to eat, and there were only 2 customers in the entire restaurant, Juchu and Jiang Jinmai. Sister, if you want to eat it in the future, her sweet and sour pork is very good. Juchu, who was already sitting on the chair opposite Jiang Jinmai, recommended it. So, is the sweet and sour pork better or is the boss lady better? Jiang Jinmai lowered her voice so low that Juchu had to get very close. He never thought that Jiang Jinmai would ask such a question. No wonder she acted strangely after entering the restaurant, turns out it was because of this. But she was just overthinking it. At most, it was just a relationship between a customer and a store owner. How could it be anything else? He has no intention of expanding that kind of weird relationship. Not to mention that the boss lady was already married. Even if she wasn't married, it's impossible, right? So, what are you thinking about? Juchu raised his eyebrows, bent his fingers and flicked them on his head. A slap, no sound but very painful. Okay. Jiang Jinmai took 2 deep breaths and rubbed his forehead. The servant actually dared to hit the master. Is he going to devour the master? I just want to correct your wrong thoughts. Juchu leaned back subconsciously with a sense of crisis. He just managed to avoid Jiang Jinmai's hand that was reaching out to grab him. I didn't expect that she would hold such a grudge. When she couldn't catch him, she stood up and walked to his side. Jiang Jinmai's hands were not small, just enough to hold Juchu's shoulders and prevent him from standing up. Looking down from above, she opened her mouth slightly, blew air onto her fingers, and flicked them against his forehead. Her force was so strong that Ju Chu felt his head buzzing instantly. It was as if a resonance had been struck in my mind. The key point is that after treating himself like this, she actually put on a distressed expression, frowned slightly, leaned down slightly, put her mouth to the place where she had just flicked him, and exhaled softly. If he didn't know in advance that it was her who played the piano, Ju Chu would even wonder where this considerate big sister came from. The two people were very close to each other, and Ju Chu could clearly see her neck. There was not a single wrinkle on it, and it was as white and smooth as her face. But in the next second, at the place where he had just been hit, there was another hard hit. Is this the legendary beating after which one is given a sweet treat and then another beating? Does it hurt? Jiang Jinmai stood up and looked down at him condescendingly. It hurts. Ju Chu told the truth. It's okay if it hurts. I'll teach you a lesson. Jiang Jinmai looked into his eyes carefully, and there was even some intimidation in her eyes. Don't think you can be casual just because I smile. I'm one of the most difficult creatures in the world. As she spoke, she turned around and returned to her seat, and smiled again before Ju Chu could react. It was as if she wasn't the one with the ruthless look on her face just now. So, how did she manage to switch between gentleness and cruelty so easily? Her extraordinary talent in this area is really. God gave her the wrong attributes. Just when the atmosphere was about to become awkward, the proprietress came out from the direction of the kitchen carrying dishes. A large plate with 3 plates on it, each with a dish of food. This is a free drink for both of you. After arranging the dishes and rice, the proprietress took out a 1-liter bottle of drink from the refrigerator and placed it in the middle of the dining table. Thank you. Jiang Jinmai smiled at her on behalf of Ju Chu. Although the corners of her mouth were raised, there was not much smile in her eyes. Chapter 22, The Ever-Changing Queen. Ju Chu picked up the chopsticks, picked up a piece of stir-fried meat and put it into his mouth. The aroma of the meat directly fills the entire mouth. I don't know why the food tasted better today. Maybe it's because I was a little hungry after working out. He didn't care about face or not. After all, there weren't many people around. He just picked up the rice and put it into his mouth. In comparison, Jiang Jinmai's eating style is much more elegant. She takes a mouthful of rice and then a mouthful of meat, and waits until she finishes chewing before eating the next piece. There was just one problem. She had just said that she wanted to eat something light, but when the food came, she didn't eat the light cold bean curd at all, and even only took a few bites of the scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Instead, the small plate of stir-fried pork became the focus of both people's attention. It's no wonder that she says one thing but does another. It turns out that she still likes to eat meat. But this is also a good thing, because girls who like to eat meat are generally easier to feed, because all you have to do is give them meat. Ju Chu very wisely gave up the stir-fried pork and turned to scrambled eggs with tomatoes. But the next second, Jiang Jinmai's chopsticks followed like a shadow and actually landed on the yellow egg. Is she learning from herself? If I eat cold bean curd myself, will she eat it too? At the same time as he picked up the cold bean curd, Jiang Jinmai's chopsticks also picked up a piece. When I looked up at her, she had a pitiful expression as if she knew nothing. It seems like all of this is random, just fate, not deliberate at all. It's really not deliberate at all. At this moment, Jiang Jinmai has lost their maliciousness that she had just shown when she tapped her head, and has become cute and silly instead. A pair of big eyes blinked and the slightly pouting lips looked extremely pitiful. The rosy and full lips were really charming when they were pouted. He wanted to feel the softness of them. Ju Chu didn't quite know what she was going to do, because now she was like the little girl who deliberately tried to attract the attention of the boy she liked when she was a child, but this was undoubtedly inconsistent with her usual identity. Could it be that the food in this restaurant is so delicious that it reminded her of the taste of her childhood and made her return to her childhood? Which one do you like to eat best? Ju Chu asked tentatively. They are all okay. Jiang Jinmai nodded vigorously, turned around and looked at the proprietress, gave her a thumbs up and praised, as expected, Ju Chu must come to your place for dinner. It's really delicious. The moment Ju Chu heard the name, Chu Chu, his whole body tensed up. Few people call him that anymore, even his sister Ju Qin only calls him that when she needs him. Jiang Jinmai has basically never called him like that, so why did she call him so intimately this time? There must be something wrong here. Sister, are you okay? Ju Chu asked as he moved closer, reaching out his hand to touch Jiang Jinmai's forehead. Could it be that running in the morning caused my body to get hot and sweaty, and then burned my brain? Jiang Jinmai didn't do anything, she just obediently stretched her face forward and leaned her forehead on his palm. It shouldn't be hot, Zhu Chu confirmed. But he withdrew his hands, and Jiang Jinmai retracted her head as if she had just woken up from a dream, with a shy blush on her face. What on earth is this for? Zhu Chu felt like crying but had no tears. He had no way to deal with Jiang Jinmai as usual, and now that she was acting so coquettish and cute, he could only surrender. I don't have a fever, Jiang Jinmai said suddenly, but her voice sounded a little clamped. Who could believe that a 26-year-old mature woman who was about 1.7 meters tall could speak with a babyish lowly voice? Sister, let's stop making trouble. Zhu Chu covered his face with his hands, and the proprietress who had been working at the counter couldn't help but laugh. It seems you don't like this type. Jiang Jinmai nodded, her voice returned to normal, and she picked up a large piece of stir-fried meat and put it in his bowl. I really don't like it. Zhu Chu was not joking. He really wasn't interested in the lowly type. Jiang Jinmai is more normal now. The only thing that is abnormal is the piece of meat in the bowl. Have their relationship become close enough that they can pick food for each other? In his mind, generally at this stage they already have a very close relationship. How did Jiang Jinmai accomplish this without changing her expression or heart beating? Maybe this is a mature woman. Aren't these mature women attractive? I really don't understand why those hentai like such illegal things. Just as he was thinking, Jiang Jinmai took out a small bag of fingers from his pocket, pulled out a piece of toilet paper from it, and handed it to him. It had already landed on the corner of his mouth, rubbing gently. The force was so gentle that Zhu Chu could even feel the touch of the skin through the toilet paper. As he stared in amazement, Jiang Jinmai slowly withdrew her hand, folded the toilet paper into two and put it aside. This operation once again refreshed Zhu Chu's cognition. If the act of picking up the food just now was a critical hit, then this time the act of directly attacking the food was undoubtedly a fatal blow. This kind of action, let alone a pure boy like him, would probably confuse even those experienced in the love field, right? He opened his mouth slightly, and the corners of his mouth seemed to no longer belong to him, completely occupied by the tenderness just now. There's a little bit at the corner of your mouth, so you should be careful when eating. Jiang Jinmai's tone was extremely gentle, and her warm smile was full of thoughtfulness. But his only thought now is, escape. Escape from this weird place. She has been feeling very strange ever since she entered this store. It must be because this place is unlucky, or at least it is the kind that makes her sick. He no longer dared to look at the boss lady's eyes, that smirking look made him very embarrassed. Sister, why don't we pack up the food and eat it when we take it back? Zhu Chu gave his own plan. Even if he didn't want to have this meal, he couldn't stay in this place. Today, either Jiang Jinmai is a social failure or he is a social failure, but Jiang Jinmai obviously does not take being weird as a big deal. It seems you don't like this either. Jiang Jinmai sighed with regret, her tone became deeper, and her eyes stared at Zhu Chu. So what kind do you like? Me? Zhu Chu scratched his head. I think the normal you is the best. It's the perfect image in my mind. How perfect is it? Jiang Jinmai insisted. The standards for choosing a partner are so perfect. Real. Real. That's good. Jiang Jinmai nodded and picked up the chopsticks again. She definitely couldn't believe Zhu Chu's words completely, after all, they were so exaggerated. But after listening to Zhu Chu's affectionate confession, she is really happy now. Chapter 23 Is that your girlfriend? Check out the bill. Seeing that both of them had almost finished eating, Zhu Chu took the initiative to walk to the counter. After all, this was the first time he went out to eat with Jiang Jinmai, so he couldn't possibly let her pay the bill, right? Besides, I have some money now, so it's no problem to treat her to home-style restaurants like this every day. Jiang Jinmai just smiled slightly and looked at his back. Now she had figured out the boss lady's feelings for Zhu Chu, and she even showed them some affection. From the boss lady's expression, she knew that she had given up. As expected, the proprietress looked at Zhu Chu with a much purer look in her eyes. She counted the cost of the 3 dishes on the table with her fingers. It's a total of 33 yuan, and the decimals will be removed. Just pay 30 yuan. Okay. Is that your girlfriend? The proprietress changed the subject and looked at Jiang Jinmai in a friendly manner before turning back to Zhu Chu. This Ju Chu also turned around and looked at Jiang Jinmai, signaling to her with his eyes that he didn't know how to answer. If he answered yes, he would be embarrassed if Jiang Jinmai denied it. If the answer is no, the opportunity to say no should be given to the girl. At least it needs Jiang Jinmai's consent. How could Jiang Jinmai not know what he meant? She just smiled and shook her head, and took the initiative to answer. I am considered his sister, but if he wants to find a girlfriend, he must go through me first. I see. The proprietress nodded. She had run the shop here for so many years, how could she not know what was going on? Now the two of them are probably in an ambiguous relationship, and can only address each other as brother and sister to outsiders. But in fact, they are probably very close to being boyfriend and girlfriend. I think you two are a good match, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. The proprietress said half-jokingly, and the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes seemed much lighter under the reflection of her smile. Thank you. Jiang Jinmai had already stood up. She nodded to the proprietress and waved, motioning Ju Chu to follow her. I'm leaving. Slow down. By the time Ju Chu walked out of the restaurant, Jiang Jinmai was already riding on her bike. The sunlight shone on her through the gaps in the leaves, dyeing her long hair and pupils a layer of golden color. The beauty was like that of a mixed race, with super white long legs supporting the ground, turning to him and patting the back seat with his right hand. Ju Chu walked forward and sat on it. I suggest you hold on to me, because I'm about to turn out of the school and onto the main road. Jiang Jinmai had just finished speaking when she finally felt a pair of hands on her waist. To be exact, it was arms, because those hands had already wrapped around her and were surrounding her in front. Actually, there's no need to be so nervous. Jiang Jinmai twisted her body slightly, and because Ju Chu was hugging her, his face would naturally stick to her back. But the next second the electric car started and rushed out from the spot without any worries. In fact, she can ride an electric bike. She had ridden it for a long time when she was in school. It's just that she didn't ride it for a while during this holiday and she is a little unfamiliar with it. Now that she has regained her feeling, she doesn't have to worry about anything. Ju Chu's face was forced close to her back. The back is not that broad, on the contrary, it is thin and soft, with only a thin layer of cloth blocking it. At this moment, he suddenly heard Jiang Jinmai shout, "Hold tight." Before he could react, Jiang Jinmai made a sharp turn like a drift and almost threw him out. The car was just a little bit away from tipping over. At least Ju Chu felt that it was just a little bit away. The car body and the ground were bent almost to 45 degrees, and it felt like you could die at any moment. You know, most people will slow down when turning, but for Jiang Jinmai, this seems completely unnecessary. Ju Chu hugged Jiang Jinmai tightly. Sister, let's slow down. Ju Chu was really worried. You know, they didn't wear helmets. If something happened. That's all. Jiang Jinmai said with a smile, your sister was much more aggressive with me before. That's right, and then she broke her arm. She still had her arm in a cast and bandages when she returned home that year. Ju Chu couldn't help but make fun of her. It turned out that Ju Qin was injured because she was riding fast, and when she returned home she insisted that it was an accident. Were you okay at that time? Ju Chu couldn't help but ask. I slept late in the dormitory that day, and I actually escaped the disaster. Since wind can disperse sound to a great extent, Jiang Jinmai needs to speak very loudly so that Ju Chu can barely understand what she means. So maybe this is the blessing of lazy people. Jiang Jinmai sighed, holding the front of the car with one hand, and raised the other hand, pointing to the right. You'd better hold me tight now and close your eyes, I'm going to turn. Of course, Ju Chu's first reaction at this time was to jump out of the car. But jumping out of the car will definitely make things more dangerous. Closing my eyes is even more impossible, but with my eyes open I at least have the feeling that my life is in my own hands. Ju Chu could only try his best to shrink his body downwards, and at the same time, he didn't care about the taboos between men and women, and hugged Jiang Jinmai with his whole body. 3 seconds later. 5 seconds later. 10 seconds later. Why didn't I feel the weightlessness I imagined? Nor did I feel the flying sensation brought by the centrifugal force. Could it be that I have flown out and am now in heaven? Ju Chu shook his head vigorously to confirm that this was the real world. Jiang Jinmai couldn't help but laugh out loud. Since the school is located in a university town, there are few cars nearby and the roads are empty, so the sound can be transmitted very far and clearly. The whole avenue was filled with her laughter. She didn't care about her image at all. At this point, Jiang Jinmai is almost laughing to death. How could he not know what just happened? She was just lying to herself. She said she was going to make a sharp turn and made herself extremely nervous, but in the end she didn't make any move and was just making a fool of herself. Sister, that's too much. Ju Chu's face darkened, but after pretending to be serious for a while, he smiled. Just now I was just worried about safety, right? Of course I'm right. Jiang Jinmai took a deep breath and finally recovered. It's just a little funny. Don't you think about it? You were holding my waist so tightly, how could I have the courage to force a turn? Aren't you afraid of flying out with you? Jiang Jinmai's voice became serious. Only then did Ju Chu realize how tightly he was hugging her. She had already put on a short-sleeved shirt over her sports bra, and the originally loose hem of the short-sleeved shirt was squeezed to highlight the extremely thin outline of her waist. What a great figure! Chapter 24 Uniforms. Jiang Jinmai parked her car in the parking space in front of the shopping mall. Ju Chu watched her park the car. He didn't know how much torture he had endured along the way before he finally reached his destination. According to Jiang Jinmai's description, this shopping mall should be the best one near the university town. It is a 4-story building with a pedestrian street in the middle. Since it is the National Day holiday, there are still many people on the pedestrian street. Many students from the university town who cannot go home come here to spend money. He hadn't been here for a month since school started, and just as he was looking around, he was suddenly hit on the back by a strong impact. He took several steps forward before he could barely steady himself. If it was an ordinary person, he would have started to scold, but if it was Jiang Jinmai. Actually, it didn't hurt that much when I got pounced on just now. Since Ju Chu's back was already arched, Jiang Jinmai just hugged his neck and hung on it. A 26-year-old woman actually has to carry it on her own. But she seemed to have no intention of coming down, so Ju Chu could only reach his hands back, wrap his arms around her thighs from the outside to the inside, and then lift them up. You really want to carry me? Jiang Jinmai was also stunned. Her initial thought was just to hang on for a little longer. As for why she had this idea, she doesn't know either. To be exact, she had been feeling weird since the whole morning, but she couldn't tell why. It's like turning on another attribute of yours, but once turned on, it can't be turned off. Normally, she would never do such a thing as asking a man to carry her on his back. Jiang Jinmai. If you continue like this, you are no longer Jiang Jinmai. Nothing good will come of giving too much away. Jiang Jinmai took a deep breath, patted Ju Chu's shoulder gently, and signaled him to put her down. For some reason, after losing a lot of weight, Ju Chu felt a little uncomfortable with it. What's the matter with coming here? Ju Chu turned his head and looked at the pedestrian street. Although it was very long and looked prosperous, most of the stalls were for food, and they had just eaten. Other than that, all he could think of was shopping and watching movies. Jiang Jinmai seemed to have just thought of this question, because she was obviously a little flustered. But her eyes turned, as if she had thought of a good idea, and a smile appeared instantly. Will you accompany me no matter what I do? Maybe. Ju Chu originally wanted to answer, of course, but he slightly modified the words when they came to his lips. After all, if it meant cutting his own kidney, he would definitely not agree. The same thing, it doesn't violate moral ethics. Jiang Jinmai raised her eyebrows, and her tone gradually became domineering. It was time to take advantage of her status as the master. That's fine. Ju Chu nodded. Then come shopping with me first. Jiang Jinmai waved her hand with the aura of a big sister and led him into the mall. Jiang Jinmai said that the mall is quite prosperous, which is indeed true. The first floor is full of electronic products. Jiang Jinmai was obviously not interested in any of this and directly pulled him upstairs. The moment she landed on the second floor, Jiang Jinmai's eyes lit up. Ju Chu could clearly see that the light in her eyes was ignited. Sure enough, the essence of shopping with a woman is to visit various clothing stores and cosmetic stores. It's a standard women's clothing store. Jiang Jinmai has already walked in. She turned around and found that Ju Chu had not followed. She even took 2 steps back, grabbed Ju Chu's arm, and dragged him into the store. What would you like to buy, beautiful girl? As soon as they entered the store, the clerk came up to Jiang Jinmai very enthusiastically and completely ignored Ju Chu, who was standing aside. Because female customers are the main force of consumption. Ju Chu sat directly on a chair at the side and looked at the furnishings and layout of the store. It is a standard women's clothing store. The overall layout is mainly white and light yellow, which gives it a sense of warmth. And since it is not a store specializing in a certain brand, there is not the solemn atmosphere inside. As it is facing the elevator entrance, there are quite a lot of customers, but most of them are female customers who are picking out clothes. Juchu was just about to take out his cell phone. Suddenly a shadow came over him, and he subconsciously raised his head, and in front of him was Jiang Jinmai. "Help me choose clothes." Jiang Jinmai pulled his arm and walked to the dressing mirror. Looking through the mirror, Jiang Jinmai has obviously become much more beautiful. The sales clerks in this kind of store need to be screened based on their appearance, and they are obviously beauties picked from thousands. But when standing in front of Jiang Jinmai, even though the clerk had the bonus of a uniform, he was still defeated in seconds by Jiang Jinmai, who was only wearing an ordinary short-sleeved shirt. After Jiang Jinmai won the first place with her beauty brought by her height, the three-dimensionality and refinement of her facial features were another hit. But Juchu didn't say anything and retracted his gaze. After all, in this kind of store, there was only one requirement for male companions, and that was to stare at their female companions carefully and not look at other women casually. Otherwise the female companion will look ugly. "Miss, what kind of clothes do you want to buy? Do you have formal wear? Like shirts and suits?" All that was left were politeness and inquiries about physical data, and Juchu also got to know Jiang Jinmai more deeply. Things like her breasts were 36C, Juchu definitely wouldn't be able to hear it. And she wanted to buy formal clothes so that she could look as formal as possible when attending class. After all, while she is working on her doctorate, she also serves as an undergraduate teaching assistant. If she is teaching, she cannot dress too casually. "Wait for me." Jiang Jinmai pressed his shoulders and pushed him into the chair. After leaving a few words, she went into the locker room and started changing clothes. Juchu could only take out his cell phone to pass the time. Only about 4 or 5 minutes later, he was disturbed by the exclamations and gasps around him, and followed everyone's gaze towards the locker room. "Isn't he that Jiang Jinmai?" But now she is wearing a professional outfit, looking intellectual and elegant, with her long hair tied into a single braid and a slight smile on the corner of her mouth. She no longer looked like a student, but had the temperament of a female teacher. When she looked at Juchu, she felt an inexplicable sense of intimidation. He finally understood why those people like to watch cosplay. Who can withstand this? Jiang Jinmai completely ignored the admiration from others and walked straight towards him. Juchu couldn't think of any adjectives to describe her. Now all he could say was fuck. Chapter 25, Don't have fantasies about your sister. Sister, this is beautiful. Juchu originally wanted to make up some more words, but the more he thought about it, the more he stuttered. He usually doesn't stutter when telling lies, but now he stutters when telling the truth. What kind of physiological phenomenon is this? Anyway, no matter how many adjectives there are, in the end they are all integrated into the thumbs up. I guess she also knows the value of her thumb. Does it look good? Jiang Jinmai raised her sleeves and looked at her outfit. She just felt that she looked a little more mature and she didn't expect Juchu to have such a big reaction. Am I really suitable for this type? Although she didn't want to admit it, which girl didn't want to be a girl forever? But it seemed to be the case. It seems that I have no choice but to accept it. It looks good. Juchu nodded, stood up from the stool, took a few steps back and looked at Jiang Jinmai. Sure enough, beauties can hold up at all angles, and because Jiang Jinmai is tall, her figure advantages can be more clearly seen if viewed from a distance. It seemed as if Jiang Jinmai was the only one left in the entire clothing store. Her charm almost overwhelmed all the women who were changing clothes. There were even many cases where the male companions were pulled by the ears because they stared at Jiang Jinmai and completely ignored their girlfriends. That's good. Jiang Jinmai pursed her lips and smiled faintly. For some reason, she clearly wanted to laugh in this situation. But the clothes restricted her, forcing her to purse her lips at best. I'm just an assistant teacher, how come I have such a strong sense of responsibility? How lucky it would be to be her student. Jiang Jinmai has not actually confirmed what she will do in the future, even though she has already obtained a doctorate. In fact, her elders all advised her to become a university teacher. University teachers have so much free time that she will have enough time and energy to write her own love story. It's a pity that she still wants to try more. It would be a pity if her life is tied to college. Not all students are as cute and handsome as Juchu in front of them tilde. But all this worried look only flashed by, and if Juchu hadn't paid attention, he probably wouldn't have noticed it. But he was not very clear why Jiang Jinmai was worried, perhaps because the clothes were not quite to her liking. Sure enough, the next second she had unbuttoned the top button of her shirt. The distance between the buttons of this kind of suit shirt is relatively large. After unbuttoning one button, the snow-white collarbone is directly exposed. Her skin is really white and smooth, even the skin on her body is so white and tender without a single blemish. How can she look like a 26-year-old woman? Even many 6 or 7-year-old children don't have skin this good. And because the top, discipline button, was unbuttoned, she instantly became more charming from the serious and solemn teacher she originally was. It was like when you went to your teacher's house for dinner and she was wearing a shirt with 1 or 2 buttons undone at the top. After a few drinks, she fell on the sofa feeling a little dizzy, with a flushed face and silky eyes. I couldn't hold back my excitement and sent the teacher to the bedroom. The living room is cold, be careful not to catch a cold. Juchu couldn't help swallowing several times and took a deep breath to calm himself down. It must be because Jiang Jinmai was so weird today that he also had some weird fantasies. You have to know that this is in public, how can I think about those things? How could Jiang Jinmai not see his embarrassment? She is not that kind of little girl, and she can still see the normal reactions of boys. What are you thinking about? Jiang Jinmai took a step forward, blocking Juchu to prevent him from making a fool of himself. At the same time, she put her mouth next to Juchu's ear and spoke in a very soft tone, almost like blowing, "Say it out for your sister to hear." I wasn't thinking anything. Juchu bit his lip hard to wake himself up. What a bad woman. As the saying goes, true sexiness is often not when you are fully exposed, but when you are half exposed. Was she doing this just to arouse her own evil fantasies and then watch herself make a fool of herself? Really? Jiang Jinmai stretched out her right hand and slid it down from his chest little by little. Just when it was about to reach her lower abdomen, Juchu reached out to stop her. "Sister, I was wrong." In the end, he was defeated. He was indeed at a disadvantage when fighting against this kind of pure queen. I really don't know what you're thinking. Jiang Jinmai blinked and whispered in his ear, "You should know that I'm your sister's best friend, so if you round it off, I'm your sister. Don't have any evil thoughts about your sister." Juchu originally wanted to retort that he had no evil thoughts, but when he thought of her fingers sliding all the way down, he swallowed his words of rebuttal. That's hard to say. Juchu also said in Jiang Jinmai's ear. What he hates most is when others use their identities to threaten him. When he was young, Ju Qin liked to use her status as an older sister to oppress him. Jiang Jinmai is still using this method now. You still have to be tough when necessary, otherwise if you keep giving in like this, Jiang Jinmai will really look down on you. Oh. Jiang Jinmai raised her eyebrows, took a step back, and turned around in front of Ju Chu, as if she wanted him to see her whole body. She doesn't seem to care that I contradicted her. Sure enough, his decision was correct. One should not be too weak. Not bad. Ju Chu nodded. Then pack this one up. Jiang Jinmai pointed at her suit and stretched out her hand to touch Ju Chu's nose. By the time he reacted, she had already gone back into the locker room. But as soon as she entered the locker room, her tense body instantly relaxed. She let out a long breath, and while changing her clothes she was figuring out how she should control Ju Chu. After getting to know him over this period of time, it is obvious that he is not the kind of soft persimmon that can be easily bullied. You can even say to yourself, I can't tell. If it were an ordinary girl, she would probably ask his sister to intervene in the matter and teach this unruly guy a lesson. But how could Jiang Jinmai be an ordinary girl? Since he is the man that I want to control, of course everything must be under my control. What's the point of relying on off-field assistance? She just couldn't believe that with all these years of experience she couldn't control a little Ju Chu. After all, she had promised Ju Qin to take care of her younger brother, so this kind of emotional counseling could certainly be considered counseling. By the time she changed her clothes, she had already come up with a complete educational plan for Ju Chu. Chapter 26. Is this what it feels like to be kept? If you want to transform a person, the first step is definitely to change the clothes he is wearing now. After all, people are judged by their appearance first. It is said that clothes make the man, and saddles make their horse. She didn't even continue looking at her women's clothing. After having the clerk pack them and paying, she directly pulled Ju Chu into the men's clothing store. Sister, have you ever thought about this question? Juchu held her back forcefully. Is it possible to buy clothes online at a lower price and at the same time compare prices? Nowadays, most people shop online, right? This is why these physical stores are declining so quickly. Branded stores can still barely survive with the brand's funds, but most non-branded stores cannot sustain it. But the store where Jiang Jinmai bought clothes occupies the best location and is not a brand store, so it is really amazing that it can survive. To some extent, it also proves that the quality of the things in his store is really good. Although the entire floor is for buying clothes, most of them are women's clothing, and there is only one men's clothing shop in the corner. After all, women are the main force of shoppers, and boys like Juchu will definitely shop online or not buy clothes at all. Online shopping. Jiang Jinmai gathered her long hair, turned around slightly and pursed her lips. For clothes, I think it's better to buy them offline. After all, you can actually try them on and choose them. If you buy them online, you will always feel confused. But you can return the goods, and buying clothes online is really cheap. Juchu still wanted to try hard, but of course his goal was not to change Jiang Jinmai's concept. And to avoid going into the clothing store. He didn't like the feeling of being stared at, pointed at, and picked on. The purpose of spending money on clothes is to enjoy yourself, so why make yourself feel uncomfortable? After hearing what he said, Jiang Jinmai wanted to turn around and persuade him, but her hair blocked her view, so she could only use her hair to smoothen her hair again. She missed the time when she first tied her long hair with a hairband. That was so refreshing and free. But I spent a lot of money to create this long hair style, so I will definitely let it down like this when I am relaxing. It does look better this way. Don't try to persuade me. I'm going to take you in to pick out some clothes now. Just decide whether you want to come in or not. Although Juchu really wanted to say, I want to go in. But after seeing Jiang Jinmai's expression that was half intimidating and half tempting, he still backed down. If you don't like it, can you not buy it? I'll pay you, okay? Hearing Jiang Jinmai's expression of wealth, Juchu immediately nodded and agreed. After all, I don't need to spend any money, and it's nice to just look at the clothes. After all, it is a brand store. If he doesn't have financial support, he won't even enter the door here. The entire store is decorated in a white to black tone, without too much decoration. But Juchu felt that it was much better than those fancy women's clothing stores. There is a large glass door with a row of clothes racks inside. There were sets of clothes hanging on the wall. Since it was summer, short-sleeved shirts and thin outerwear were hung on the outside. But the wardrobe that holds most of the clothes is built into the wall, and the clothes inside are all weird. In fact, there are only a few major categories of men's summer clothes, so you should be able to make your selection quickly and leave. This was Juchu's original idea. It should be done quickly, right? But Jiang Jinmai's actions quickly dispelled his fantasies. She picked up the clothes one by one and compared them to herself. After comparing them, she either nodded or shook her head, and sometimes she even went back to ask the clerk for his evaluation. The clerk would definitely give compliments and also mix in some small suggestions of his own, but of course the main content of the suggestions would still be recommendations. It was completely impossible for Juchu to sit down. He felt like a monkey in a zoo. It's enough for the clothes to be wearable. He doesn't have any intention of seducing girls. The only person I'm sure to see in college is Jiang Jinmai, but she probably won't criticize my fashion sense too much. These are the only ones I have. Take them in and change. Jiang Jinmai picked out 4 pieces of clothes and handed them to him. Wait until Juchu comes out after changing his clothes. It was obvious that Jiang Jinmai and the clerk both had their eyes wide open. It seems like you didn't expect him to dress like this. He was now wearing a specially designed piece of this brand, although Juchu couldn't tell what the special design was. If I have to say something, it's that the pattern above is a little more Western. It's hard to describe, maybe it would be easier to understand if I told you the price. Just a simple short-sleeved shirt is worth 600 yuan. If this store wasn't located in a large shopping mall and the atmosphere of the store was more like that of a regular brand store, Juchu would have suspected that he had entered a black shop that was specifically designed to make money. Otherwise, why would it be so expensive? Although the pinched fabric feels good, it is only about the same as my most expensive $100 short-sleeved shirt. $500 for a fancy pattern like this. It's outrageous. If Jiang Jinmai hadn't spent money, he probably wouldn't have stayed for even a minute. But looking at Jiang Jinmai's expression, she seemed very satisfied and didn't care about the price at all. This guy should be the young lady's boyfriend, right? He is so handsome. He looks like a model. The clerk's expression was particularly sincere. If Juchu hadn't known in advance that she was trying to cheat him out of his money, he would have been flattered for a while after being praised by such a beautiful woman. When Jiang Jinmai heard her words, she covered her mouth and smiled softly, but her eyes never left Juchu, as if asking himself how he should answer. "He's not my boyfriend." Jiang Jinmai shrugged, waved Juchu over, and ruffled his hair. "He's my sister and my brother." Sister and brother? No wonder they look like each other. The clerk was also smart. "No wonder you two look so good looking." "Thank you." Jiang Jinmai nodded. Juchu had just changed into the clothes she had helped him choose, and she had a rough choice in her mind, but in order to be fair, she still wanted to ask Juchu's opinion. "Which one do you like?" "It's a bit expensive." Juchu whispered in her ear. The sound was very low, and the clerk wisely took a step back, so he should not have heard it. He really can't wear such expensive clothes when going out. It would be a huge psychological burden for him. What if it gets dirty? What if it is damaged? I don't even have enough time to supply such expensive clothes. When Jiang Jinmai heard his words, she couldn't help laughing and patted Juchu on the shoulder, indicating that he didn't need to worry. "My brother said these clothes are all good." Jiang Jinmai decisively twisted his words and handed all four clothes to the clerk. "I want them all, pack them up." Juchu was stunned. Is this what it feels like to be kept? Now the rich woman is really hungry. Chapter 27 Detective Career. Juchu was carrying a lot of things in her hands. It took her a long time to finish visiting all the shops. She couldn't remember how many things she had bought. Money seemed to be just a number to her, and she would pay without blinking an eye no matter how much it was. I don't know how much living expenses her parents gave her. But the reason why Jiang Jinmai spends so much money is not because of the high living expenses. Just the royalties for last month have already been paid, a total of more than 30,000 yuan. Qidian's royalties will not be paid until the 10th, but the money he has already received will not fly away. Even if she bought so many clothes, it would only cost a few $1,000s. Besides, she has been typing for so long, can't she enjoy herself? And she would be very happy when she thought that Juchu was a fan of her books, and a very rare and genuine fan of her books. What's wrong with spending money on genuine books? After all, he contributed a lot to my royalties. Did you see the update about Kiss the Pig last night? Jiang Jinmai suddenly asked. She tried her best to remain calm and pretend to be just another book friend discussing the plot. But it's so hard to suppress my laughter. Juchu's expression when he's thinking seriously is so funny. She couldn't help but reach out and touch Juchu's head, but she quickly reacted and withdrew her hand. Otherwise it would be easy to be seen. It's not bad, quite sweet, but a little watery. Juchu was telling the truth. She didn't notice at all that Jiang Jinmai's smile gradually disappeared when she talked about the word sweet to water. Although she is usually very tolerant of readers' comments, they are never criticized face to face. Just imagine, the results of hours of hard work are negated. Even if it is partially denied, it would be very uncomfortable, right? Juchu finally noticed something was wrong with Jiang Jinmai. Most importantly, she didn't speak for a long time after he finished his evaluation. Just kept thinking about something silently. Why do you say water? After a long time, Jiang Jinmai's frown relaxed a little, but his tone became more aggressive. No reason. Juchu subconsciously took a step back, because he could clearly see that Jiang Jinmai's eyes were extremely serious, as if she was going to eat him alive if he couldn't explain it. How much does she like this book? She actually defends it so much. No, sister, you can imagine that if two people get married, their love will turn into a long-lasting happiness as they spend time together. This is the beauty of everyday life. The sweetness of this daily life will decrease slightly, but its solidity will increase day by day. Juchu tried to explain while watching Jiang Jinmai's expression change without blinking. Fortunately, his expression relaxed a lot, proving that his words were useful and at least did not worsen the situation. You don't know the pig, do you? What? Juchu just made a tentative statement, but Jiang Jinmai's reaction was outrageous. Her face flushed red, with an expression that said, "How could I possibly know her?" Her pupils contracted sharply, and she waved her hands in front of her body several times. If she hadn't done that, Juchu might not have noticed. Thinking about it this way, it is indeed possible. After all, it has been rumored that Chensu Jiang is a graduate student. Jiang Jinmai happens to be studying for a doctorate this year, so wasn't she also a graduate student last year? And there are also good friends who can talk to each other. Even if we don't know each other, there is some kind of relationship between us. After all, she knew Ju Qin, so how strange was it to know a pig kisser? Jiang Jinmai is most likely also a book writer, and because she and Qin Zhujiang have a lot in common, the two got to know each other. This is probably the most likely explanation. So my task now is to find evidence that Jiang Jinmai is also a writer, and then make her socially ruined. She still wants to control herself. This time, let her feel the feeling of being controlled. How could I know her? Jiang Jinmai continued to wave his hands frantically, as if there was a huge demon in front of him that was about to approach him. I'm just kidding. Ju Chu smiled and patted her shoulder. What you need to know at this time is to stop. If you push too hard, Jiang Jinmai will become alert, and it will be difficult for you to find evidence in the future. One can just imagine what type of novel Jiang Jinmai might write. Judging from her appearance, she probably won't write science fiction or fantasy, and it is most likely to be a female-oriented work. Romance novels are actually more female-oriented, and this is also true. So what exactly did she write? Ju Chu thought. The easiest way now is to get her mobile phone and see if there is the Author S software in it, or see if her Qidian account is the Author S account. But this is easier said than done. At this moment, who would be willing to show their phone to others? Even for boyfriends and girlfriends, it would be difficult to look at their phones, let alone someone like them. But as long as you work hard to find it, there will always be a chance. Don't joke around. Jiang Jinmai seemed to be relieved, and her flushed face began to recover, but she also punched Ju Chu on the shoulder. As for how strong it is, this punch is probably more powerful than Tai Shan's. Ju Chu rubbed his sore shoulder and dodged her second attack by turning his body to the side. Kissing a pig is my idol, don't joke about it so casually. Jiang Jinmai found a fairly reasonable excuse for her behavior. And she didn't say anything wrong, after all, the one kissing the pig was her. I am my own fan, what's the problem? Obviously not. Not only does she want to be a fan of the pig, she also wants to be a big fan. I understand. Ju Chu nodded. Now he was even more suspicious, thinking there must be some unclear relationship between the two of them. As for the specific relationship, it depends on your own detective skills. But you must pretend to repent on the surface. Do you want to go eat first? Ju Chu tried to change the subject. Although Jiang Jinmai is full of energy, he really can't hold on any longer. In fact, I didn't do anything. Most of the time I just waited for her to change clothes and then gave me some comments. What is the experience of chapter 28? After walking out of the home-style restaurant, Jiang Jinmai couldn't help rubbing her belly. Because I was really full. Her belly wasn't actually bulging, but if she didn't touch it, it seemed like it would bulge out at any time. Won't it stop bloating if you touch it to promote digestion? Jiang Jinmai really thinks she is very smart. But people who see this scene don't think so. She is a female doctor, how can she rub her belly like those careless men? Although I know that this is human freedom, it is still a contrast. It's like knowing that Liu Fei was drinking in Liangshan. What? How could Jiang Jinmai not see the meaning in Ju Chu's eyes? Oops. She forgot that there was a young boy beside her. This would definitely leave a bad impression on him. Although she is not the kind of person who has a strong idol burden, if it were an ordinary person, she would probably just roll her eyes. But with a high-quality young man like Ju Chu, I still have to be a little careful. Can't leave a bad impression on him. She is a mature older sister, not a sloppy older sister who doesn't care about her appearance. What to do next? Jiang Jinmai tried to change the subject. Ju Chu's attention was suddenly diverted, and he was thinking with his head tilted. Jiang Jinmai didn't know whether she should be happy or unhappy now. Of course he was happy because he had forgotten what had just happened, but he was also unhappy because he had forgotten what had just happened. Am I so unimportant? It was obviously my own fault. She worried for a long time whether it would leave a bad impression. Ju Chu didn't care, and was attracted by her words. Sure enough, men always only care about new things. However, Juchu did not understand Jiang Jinmai's psychological activities, because he was really thinking about Jiang Jinmai's problem seriously now. If they were an ordinary couple, they would of course watch a movie after dinner. It was already late after watching the movie, so I went straight to their hotel to get a room and sleep. Isn't this the kind of cheesy plot from youth novels? But after all, the two of them had just met on the second day, so it might not be a good idea to ask her out to the movies right away. Even though it was the second day, for some reason he felt as if they had known each other for months. Maybe it's because I'd been through a lot. But no matter how familiar they are, he couldn't do this. Putting aside her identity as his sister's best friend, just asking a girl to watch a movie was a little too obvious. Do you want to go to the movies? Jiang Jinmai actually said this in a very calm tone. You know, he hesitated for a long time and didn't say it out loud. Is this the charm of a royal sister? She can almost completely guess what you are thinking and is not ashamed to express it. Are you going or not? Jiang Jinmai actually urged, if you want to go, go upstairs. If you don't want to go, go back. Go. Juchu finally gritted his teeth and nodded. Anyway, she invited me, so no matter what happened, it has nothing to do with me. After all, with that dim environment and ambiguous atmosphere, it's hard to say what won't happen. That's right. Jiang Jinmai did not forget to educate Juchu while sitting in the elevator. As a mature man, the most important thing is to be brave and proactive. You have to know that most girls are shy, and there are not many who can say it as directly as you do. Although what she said was all right, for some reason, Juchu found it very strange. There was something odd about it, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It wasn't until the elevator successfully reached the top floor and made a ding sound when the door opened that Juchu figured it out. She takes a very strange stance. Logically speaking, people who watch movies together will more or less look at things from the girlfriend's perspective. But she is the kind of sister who educates him and teaches him how to get along with women. And it is the kind of teaching by example, not only verbal education, but also practicing it through physical actions. Juchu would have the feeling that she was not really trying to teach him, she was just making excuses for herself. Finding a reason to invite my friend's brother to watch a movie. At least it was a reason that could be used to fool herself. After all, she was seducing her best friend's brother. As expected, even someone as strong as Jiang Jinmai cannot completely overcome the hurdle in her heart. When Juchu thought of this, he felt much more balanced. Two people were already standing in the lounge area of Qidian Cinema. Tickets can now be purchased online, and Jiang Jinmai has already opened the ticket purchasing interface. There are more than a dozen movies to choose from on the interface. Which one do you want to watch? Jiang Jinmai handed the phone directly to Juchu. Juchu's heart skipped a beat, and then started beating wildly. He did not forget his mission to find out Jiang Jinmai's identity. Now that he had her cell phone in his hand, it should be an opportunity. But this opportunity was obviously very dangerous, because Jiang Jinmai was right next to him, and her eyes were looking at him and his phone from time to time. If I pick up my phone and run now, I might see the blue writer's assistant app before I'm caught up. But if you can't see it and Jiang Jinmai catches you, then it's really. He could already imagine his own end, and he never doubted Jiang Jinmai's methods. Do you know what is worse than death? When Juchu thought of the scene of himself falling into her hands, he couldn't help but shudder and decisively gave up this unrealistic idea. There will definitely be many opportunities in the future, so don't rush. What he wants is to hit the target with one strike, and then use it as a threat to make Jiang Jinmai obey him. Seize the handle and then threaten. Why does it sound like the training plan in Japanese movies? Have you made your choice? Jiang Jinmai asked impatiently. Who knows what Juchu is thinking? The interface stayed there for so long, without even turning it over. Hurry up and choose. Juchu responded hurriedly, and began to click on these movies to see the general content. Her phone only has a transparent case, which is different from the fancy ones most girls wear. It feels a little cool when it touches the palm, and the pure black body makes it look very mysterious. In fact, there is really nothing to watch in movies nowadays. They are all bad movies at first glance anyway. I can't choose. Juchu sighed and handed the phone back to Jiang Jinmai. You should also remember this. When you are out with girls, try not to let them make the decisions. Girls like men who are decisive. Jiang Jinmai said as she carefully selected. Although she said that girls like men who are decisive, she herself is not like that at all. Anyway, after letting her choose, she was obviously very happy. There is only one truth: Jiang Jinmai is not the kind of girl she says she is, but a pure woman. He suddenly realized it.